desks or not. Sound a bit echoey. I'm not getting echoey sound on this end. Now my audio here on this end is clean as anything. Just make sure everything else is turned down. There's no desktop mic. Is this one good? This one better? We give it that? Just have that on. How's that? Any better? Let me know. Video's fine. Sound is quite bad. You're not good. Okay. Echo on the sound. Might be 2 sound sources turned on for some reason. Maybe this thing's got a second mic on it. Any better now? Is it not clear? It'll catch up in a minute. It'll roll through in a minute. You'll hear the audio difference. It's just running from the audio on the Rode mic alone now. Now, again, like I said, this end, everything is absolutely in the green and perfect. You sound like a robot. Good morning. Much better. There we go. Right, now we're good. Now we're sorted. I knew there'd be something. See, I can only hear a certain amount of a certain amount of the audio from this end. I can only hear what the thing is actually putting out, but I can't hear the output at the very end of it. You guys setting wrong. Yeah, I just turned down. There's a second audio input capture was running somewhere as well. I was pulling in audio from something else. I don't know what that was pulling in, but yeah, it seems to be okay now. We're back to normal. That's the job. Lovely. See, perfecto. So we can make the audio sound really, really nice on us now. But of course, the music we can play as well, which is part of that too. I'll play music over the top. It sounds like such a professional thing, doesn't it? Anyway, that's just the built-in music. I don't know the hell where that music is coming from, but it's just built into it. I can also play other things. Because last night I was messing around on TikTok Lives, which is a bit of fun. Which I do pretty much every evening. Do a little TikTok Live stuff to answer questions and trying to gather information and stuff. It's kind of cool. It's nice to do the stuff around the edge. Anyway, sound a bit odd. Yeah, we got that. Sounded brutal. I think what I was pulling in probably sound. There's a mic, I think, on this headphone somewhere. This headphone's much better than the one that came with it, which is a Sony one. I prefer over-ear headphones. I remember that. If you want to listen to something for a long period of time, get an over-ear, one that surrounds cups your ear rather than sits on your ear. It's an awful pain in the ass to have the under-ear ones. 60 quid for an electric car service, a ton of more motors last week, Bob. That's good. Keep putting up your prices. If you've got prices there, it's really good to put them up. Colin McNulty, thank you. What you making the RT on shoot and brake? It's still not going back. It's outside the door. It's absolutely awesome car. Loved it. I've done a lot of miles in that car this week. A lot of meetings to go to and places to get to and all that sort of stuff. And it's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant machine. I really, really enjoyed that RT on. There's something about the blackout windows and things on it. It just looks great as well. Really, really good looking car. Colin Wheel is here as well. And Brian O'Donnell says Petrol in Cork range from 144.9 to 148. That's crazy. My God, that is so expensive. Sounds echoey. You're all right. I'll catch somebody's on it. I'll tell you about the echoey. That's a job much better. All right, we're here now. Yes, that's better. Audio, clean as audio. That's deadly. Right, we're back to normal. Should be back to where it was. Anyway, what I wanted to talk about this week was two things. One, just to show you something else here from on Garda Síochána, which put out this that's where we start to fall asunder, because I think that's not just dangerous, that is way beyond the pale there, guys. That's not safe anywhere, and I think the person should lose their license. Simple as that. There should be no audio's gone altogether now. Where's the audio gone now? Road is gone. Road is still there. No audio when playing the video. Oh my God. Hold on a second. I'm going to... yeah. Audio input capture is probably turned to the wrong... No, it's not the right. Window. Showing the input capture. This is going to be tricky. It's so hard to work this stuff out. It's so weird to get the sound working perfectly, and then it won't work all of a sudden. Let's add a new source to that one. Sorry, we'll be back to you now in 1 second. Remove that one. And then we will try to do that again. Let's see that again. Still working. Yeah, audio still working on that one. So I'll cut to that. And we have audio running in. And working. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. The audio is working there now. Should be working on that one. So no audio on my... You can see that screen now, can you? Yeah. Yeah, you're back. Still working? That's what I get to see when you're looking at it. You're back now. Right, good. We're good. We're all right. Right, it is. So that's... There's the speed limit that was recorded in Donegal. 122 kilometres an hour in a 50 kilometre an hour zone. 122 kilometres an hour, lads. That is terrifying. You can see and hear you. Grand. Probably need to learn sign language. You're just sorting out a brand new huge big desk sitting beside me, so I'm still trying to click on all the buttons. But you seem to have it sorted out now. Communications problems between the two of them. So we're back. Yeah, we're good. Perfect. Right, good. That's all right. So the speed van thing, they're recording 120 kilometres an hour zone, 122 kilometres an hour in a 50 kilometre an hour zone. That's what I reckon someone should lose their license. Really, honestly. And it usually is. Double the speed limit is usually license losing speed. So it can be scary stuff, you know. But in a 50 kilometre an hour zone, boy, that's dangerous. That is dangerous. There's not about issues people waiting to hear in-ear headphones too long. It traps moisture allowing fungus to grow in the ear. Oh my God, that sounds disgusting about the in-ear. Audio came back when you were back on screen. Yeah, it goes in full screen. I think that's because the audio thing. Was it working? It was working there now. That time I flicked over and back. Yeah, audio and video working now. Grand. Marcus Hogan says, Bob, I picked up a 77 kilowatt hour ID3 on Wednesday. All the software issues on early cars have been solved. Seems to be working well. Lovely drive. See, software issues can be fixed over time. So even when things look really wrong, if the car drives well, physically drives well, the software issues can be fixed after that. Congratulations, Marcus. You're picking the right cars, to be honest with you. ID3 I think is probably one of my... ID4 I think is my favourite electric car at the moment. It just works very, very well. It really does. I kind of like that what they're trying to do right now. I do have an ID4 in a couple of weeks' time to have a mess around with as well. And the Lexus electric cars are actually pretty good. Very short range, but very good, I have to say. Yes, working. Right, we're set into it now. Hi, Bob. What do you think about the Kia 7-year warranty on cars? You need to buy the car from a dealer for it to take effect. No, 7-year warranty is your pan-European warranty. So it covers the car 7 years across the entire of Europe, no matter where it was bought. Now, it's not 7 years tail to tail. You know what I mean? It's not 7 years. Like the first couple of years is much higher things that are covered under warranty. And as it gets older, it gets to a point where things that used to be warranties are no longer warranties. So just be careful of the old warranties that, you know, you're looking at the Hyundai 5-year and the Kia 7-year, but it actually isn't a full Kia 7-year. It isn't a full Hyundai 5 years, but they do cover an awful lot of stuff. So it's not too bad. The ID software now enables over-the-air updates. Yeah, everything seems to be doing that. I've noticed that in Ford as well. Like I've had Ford petrol cars here that look for the Wi-Fi in the house when they're brought outside the door so they can do software updates. So they all seem to be going on to that connectivity stuff that they're after. Now some of them ask you for permission to hook up to your phone to use it as a hotspot. So that can happen too. And most cars now come with the SIM card installed, at least a SIM card place you can put a SIM card in if it's not already there. So it definitely can happen. Don't forget to keep hitting that like button. Yes, please. Thank you very much. You're very kind. 216 of you here. Please click the like button if you don't mind. That'd be very good if you do that. Sounds good, like headphones on. Yeah, that's the mic, and it's running through a big desk here in front of me. I can do music, all kinds of crap. It's wild. Brian Cassie, Bob, 3 kids under 10 and a dog on the way. Have 2 S-Maxes last 8 years. S-Max probably the best there is. That and Galaxy. Thought Ford canning MPVs and Mondeo in 22. They're gone. Mondeo's gone. Yeah, they're getting rid of it altogether, which is a bit of a sad fact. But realistically, sales of Mondeo were falling every single year since the latest version came out. Every year. And that 3-box saloon thing doesn't sell so well anymore. It's more of a niche factor now. You need to have an estate, you need to have an affordable fleet sort of car, so there is a lot going on there at that edge too. Thinking of getting a new S-Max Petrol, PHEV, to the next 5 years. Thoughts? Yeah. You're going to notice a difference in your pocket because you are buying effectively a petrol. Unless you're willing to plug it in all the time, you're never going to get the good range out of that PHEV because it's a big car. It's a pretty big car. So, really, to get that good electric range of it, you're really going to have to plug that in every single night, which means you're going to have a home charge installed as well. Don't do the 3-pin plug thing. You just burn your plugs out. Over time, you'll just burn your plug out. Not worth it. Get a proper charger installed in your house. But if you're willing to charge it up every night and you're just doing the commute, the kids to school and things and coming home, you should be okay with it, with a PHEV. They're not too bad. But really, at the moment, there's very little in the in the big car market, so the S-Max, the Galaxy market, that is electric at the moment, full electric. ID3 is quite big. ID4 is bigger, but still is in the 7-seat. So there is electric cars that are coming. Model Y is going to be quite a big car as well for Tesla. They'll probably be out sometime in the near future when they open their Berlin factory. So there is a few that are coming, but realistically, if you need a 7-seat, you're still in the right 7-seat market. Other than that, move over to vans. The only hope you have about that, but you're not going to get electric in that. The ID software now enables over-the-air updates. Good. Terence Kelly says, "Hi Bob, great channel. Thanks for the videos. Keep it up." Of what? Quick question, price of what? You cut yourself off at the end of that. I don't know what the CAD is. You mean caddy? I'm not sure. M. Jones, if Ford bought the Bronco to the EU, do you think it would sell? Yes, it would. We are looking, I mean, Irish people and European people do look for bigger cars. I mean, look what Kia has done. They've brought the big Sorento, which is huge. I mean, it's a massive car. They've brought that. Model Y is big. ID4 is a big car as well. So there's big cars that are coming out over here, and we're buying them. We're looking for that big SUV. We all seem to want these SUVs. I mean, the big seller has been the Skoda Kodiaq. That's a full-size 7-seat car, and it's quite large. It's big on the road. It's not maybe as big as the Sorento, but it is still a big car. And it's kind of weird to see how much we're buying into these cars and not buying the little small sports cars anymore. Dan Whelan, thank you very much for the donation. Seeing lots of crossover on the road these days. Will saloon form factor go away in the Dodo in the future? I don't think it'll go away, but I think it'll become a fleet niche size car, 3-box saloon. I think that's going to disappear as something that everybody desires. The most popular place on earth for saloon used to be us in China, weirdly. The UK has never really bought into the saloon cars. They're never really mad into it. Didn't come up so much. But it's gotten a little bit worse there, and because of that it gets worse here because we can't get enough saloons anyway. Still, the king of saloons right now is things like 3 Series, 5 Series, Audi A6. You know, the Mercedes. It's that end of the market that's going to keep these saloon looking cars. We'll see if it trickles down to being get rid of like Mondeos and all. They're all disappearing at the other end of the market, which is the fleet end. See what Volkswagen does with Passat and Arteon. Arteon's a niche sale, but Passat is a good seller. Like, that sells pretty well. M. Jones, I did a Ford Bronco. Kevin N. Hyundai, Kia, Genesis now have 3 EVs coming out of the year: Ioniq 5, EV6 and GV60. They're all bringing, there's multiples of that. And if you look at Volkswagen's press conference, which I found very honest and truthful the last time I was listening, I was sitting there listening to the whole thing, and one of the things he mentioned in it was that they wanted customers to be in a position to just choose the wheels, the exterior look, the exterior colour, maybe the interior colour, and that's pretty much it. They wanted to just have the chassis and motor and battery unit underneath to be a kind of a homogenized look to the whole thing, which means, in essence, you could have every car in a fleet being one chassis, one motor, one electric unit underneath, and just change out the tops, which is what Honda were doing years ago with their, I can't remember what they were calling it. We were trying to get this hydrogen one where you could actually face the car the other way around. You could have seats facing each other inside. Now, really clever sort of universally acceptable type car. So I think that's going to happen. I think Hyundai, well, not just Hyundai, but I think Hyundai Kia Group, who has plenty of money, but also the Chinese out there as well, and the Indians that are coming to the market, they'll be looking for things that they can rationalize with and sell stuff at a reasonable cost, because it's the cost behind electric cars that's causing the problem. And this is what we're going to go through as well today. I have to straight away say, before I even get into the cost of servicing an electric car, number one problem is finding out the price of servicing a car is really hard in Ireland. It's really hard. Whether you want to service a petrol, a diesel or electric, it doesn't matter. The prices are always hidden. They always bury them into something or give you a generic idea of how much it might cost. But it seems to be so easy to find out these prices in the UK and in Australia and places like that, where it's like it's posted by What Car. They post their prices. So I kind of have to base some of what I'm talking about based upon the UK price, because they don't show you the prices here in Ireland. And it's not like just flick into an old website. You have a basic idea, but it doesn't exactly tell you. The price variance, even today I've read out a price here, which costs 60 quid to service a car. The price variance seems to be astronomical. I just want to make sure I can still see myself on this one. So what I'm going to start off with is a price list that was sent to me. I can't say who sent it to me, but it was sent to me. This is details for a Kia e-Soul, but it covers the Hyundai Kona, anything Kia and Hyundai essentially that have these parts underneath. So I'm just going to flick over and I'll show you it. You can sit back and relax and try and work out for yourself how much this is going to be. It's €990. It must be carried out every 45,000 kilometers or 36 months, whichever one comes first. So the big cost in this is the radiator coolant conductivity at 100%. See that thing there at the bottom? It's a 13.8 litres, I'm assuming that is. And it costs €47.06 per litre, which is a total cost, including VAT, of €737. Now, I'm not saying that has to be carried out on every single one of the cars that's out there, but realistically, if that has to be carried out on one car, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. Now, I will jump to the defense of the electric cars out there in the fact that when you're getting your car, your own petrol or diesel car serviced every 3 or 4 years, you could be looking at a timing belt or a timing chain or something inside the car that needs to be changed, and you could end up spending the same amount of money on a petrol and diesel car without a shadow of a doubt. But realistically, it's my second time to hear about this liquid cooling stuff that's inside of some of the cars and the cost behind it, which is €47 a litre of the stuff. Now, at the same time, if you start roaming around the internet, which I did, I started rooting about everywhere, and I'll show you this one, which is an older one. I'm going to just go back to the screen here for a second and go into that screen there, and then I can flick over that. So fade over that one, not that one. That ain't the one. I'm looking around one. Allow me to go to window here. That's the one. That's what I'm looking for. Fade. So this one here is from Windsor. This is from Windsor Car Auctions, I think it is. But you can see here on the whole lot, it seems to be sort of out of date possibly, but it's the one that comes up at the top of the Google search every single time. You can see the grants are listed here, the incentive vehicle car grants, advanced design. It shows absolutely everything, and then it tells you it's £4 for a full charge, capable over 100 miles. That's not true. That price has changed, obviously, or something's gone wrong there. But realistically, we don't have a service price on that list. Just, it's not there. So I went to the journal where I found an article here. This article was updated the 28th of the 8th, 2018, right? And there's loads of things about home chargers and all that sort of stuff, then reduced toll roads, adds up and all. But up along here, servicing costs. So it says a few moving parts of the leaf, so standard petrol, no clutch time, but it goes on and on and on. £120, roughly. Petrol diesel service costs you £199. Those probably fairly true, I would say. It wouldn't be far off £199 for a diesel one. And there probably is a check that's been done every year for 120. But realistically, the price that we're looking at there is again another sort of hidden price. Is it 120 or is it 199? Because I have more information coming into me to say that it's actually 199 or 220 every couple of years. So again, we're back to the same problem again, in that nobody seems to have an exact price cost in Ireland, right? I'm not talking about overseas, I'm talking about in Ireland now. So if I go into this is exactly the same. There's another website that I found as well, which is this one is here, Money Guide Ireland. So if I go down on here, it says exactly the same thing. Look, and this on Leaf should cost about 120, petrol should cost about 199. So again, it's cheaper there than a petrol or diesel, according to that website. But as I've already demonstrated, if you have to change the fluids out in your battery, it certainly isn't cheaper to get it serviced. Now, if you look back, if I go back to that first one I was just showing you there, which is this one, we go back to the original one, £990. Remember, this has to be carried out every 45,000 kilometres. Now, 45,000 kilometres you could do per year in an electric car. And I know there are electric owners out there who are doing 45,000 kilometres a year. So that's a service cost of £990 a year if you change out the fuel or the fluids every year, according to the service history. So the problem I really have behind all this is some of the prices are right, and that's true, that you have to do some of that stuff. But why hide them? Why are the prices of some of the things to do with electric cars hidden? Even when you're going to go and charge your car, there's nothing on the outside of the charge box to tell you how much the charge is going to cost you. Nothing. You've no idea until you log on to apps and do all this sort of stuff. It just seems to be so disingenuous that that dealers are now looking at these kind of prices and going, this is what we're going to charge. And the person who sent this to me gave me more details on some other bits and pieces as well, which I have on my phone. So there was other prices to go with this price list. Just go into it now 1 second. So if you look back at summer, winter, so if you look at ID4 for the first 2 years, they say there's no liquids change, no need to do that at all. So who knows? So they're all different. I'm literally looking at Kia, Hyundai here, which are two of the most popular electric car makers in the country. if you were getting a total service for a Passat after 45,000 kilometers, it would be €679. So that would just be a standard Passat just after 45,000 kilometers. You have to. There's more prices has to be added into it. So it depends on whether you like the initial cost of the car also has to be thrown into this mix as well. So the initial cost of the car is also higher. But if that, as it's listed there, is radiator coolant, low conductivity, 100%, 13.8 litres. If your liquids are bigger than that, it's going to go up. So it is something that I think is just hidden away that people aren't really aware of. And I'm sure there are owners out there who are educating themselves on this stuff. That's cool. But the market is going up every single time we look at it. The market's getting bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's cool. But if we don't know about all the costs, this could be a shock that you would never believe that you're going to do this. Now, at the other end of the scale, people like Tesla, they don't even mention it. It doesn't even come up on their list. So I've been through as many websites as I possibly find about servicing electric cars in general. I can even show you this one. No, what's this one? Rooting through. So this one here is from What Car. I'll flick over this one again in a second. Somebody's changed it. Anyway, this is from What Car. So you can see here in the UK, a service is required over 18,000 miles at a cost of £159 for a minor service and £209 for a major service. And they're talking here about used Nissan Leaf 2011 to 2018. So the older Nissan Leaf, well, kind of the current Nissan Leaf in fairness to it. But the price there is quite clear how much they charge for, or how much is being charged for electric car servicing. So my point is there's just a no clarity around the price of this, and it's being hidden away from the potential owners or from the future owners. And I know a service cost on a normal car can be hidden away as well. So I'm not giving out particularly about this, but I think there's as you see on multiple websites, as I was showing you today, it says that servicing should be cheaper, it should be easier, there's less moving parts, it's supposed to be very simple. But in actual fact, in practice, it isn't simple. They aren't that straightforward. There is other stuff to do there. And there is other things that need to be serviced along the way. So as dealerships and as consumers out there, you need to be aware that this is not as straightforward as it looks straight away. And the amount of people out there who told me, and the amount of articles that have been written about it, they say that electric cars have less moving parts, so there's going to be less things to be worked on, there's going to be less servicing to go on. And I find that to be complete crap. When you start looking around the place, it is the total opposite of that. It's just the same as servicing a normal car. In some cases, it's more expensive. In other cases, it's not. And it doesn't help that we have articles like this from the SEAI, which is sponsored to be on The Independent. It's clearly listed as sponsored by the SEAI, and it doesn't mention once the service costs. Not even once. Total cost of ownership is here. Fuel and charging is here. Maintenance costs. No, where's the cost? It doesn't say a word about cost in that article. Not a single word is put in there. It just says maintenance costs are also lower because an EV has fewer moving parts, which, as I've just demonstrated, is complete nonsense. It's not cheaper. It's kind of the same. It's more, it balances out. I'd say over the length of its life cycle, you would probably end up spending as much servicing an electric car, particularly if anything goes wrong with it, as you would a petrol or diesel car. And I'd love to hear your thoughts, because some of you will be owners, some of you will already have experience, maybe some of you already are 4 or 5 years into servicing. And I want to leave out the argument over the price of the fuel. Forget about the fuel bit, trying to plug it in, it's going to be cheaper to run. I'm just talking about straight up service and basically misleading information coming from sources who shouldn't be misleading us. When you ask questions, people say that you're talking out of your hat and you don't know what you're talking about. But then when you start looking at the facts and figures, I'm right. I keep saying this, that these electric cars are not going to save the world. They're very, very good. I have one. I run it all the time. But realistically, if you take out the cost of fuel out of the thing, you're still looking at the same sort of prices as petrol and diesel sort of cars. So I'll go through some of your comments and let me know if you've had a service, how much did it cost, what was changed, and how long was that service. So have you had the car 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, whatever it is, depends which one you're looking at. I'll just go back to some of the questions along the way. Also want to say, lovely responsiveness. People on the Sunday Service Facebook group asked about my new ID3, Grey Cooper John, chats are always, yeah, they are. The lads are always nice there. They are. Everybody's very supportive. We do like electric cars as well as petrol cars. There's petrol heads in there, but we know it's coming. We know what's happening. Like, you know what's going on. Once 50% of the market becomes electric, the whole conversation changes about everything. Then, you know, that's where you'll have the real petrol heads will be able to continue being real petrol heads, and we'll have very clean air out there as well, which is happening at the moment. Terence Kelly says, sorry, price of cars and price of petrol, all taxes, more or less. I did demonstrate a little while ago on with a BMW 5 Series PHEV, which is meant to be, a hybrid, a proper hybrid car. Lovely thing, but the VRT on is €11,500 on a brand new one. €11,500 to put a license plate on the front of it. That's all you're doing. And then that doesn't include VAT now. That's nothing to do with it, right? And if you start looking at the Brexit thing, which I put into the head of this as well, VRT and then the Brexit import duty, which is 10% again, and revenue are charging VAT on that 10%. So the cost of a car is now the actual cost of the car, plus VRT, plus VAT on the VRT and VAT on the car itself. Then you have 10% import duty from the UK on second-hand cars, and VAT being charged on top of that 10%. It is making the system here completely banjaxed on all fronts. Anyway, Ford killed the Escort, bought the Mondeo. That's what replacement now. Yeah, it's be gone now. The Mondeo is gone now again. Monovision, have you heard of the 4-seat, 3-door shortened version of the Renault Kangoo labelled B-Bomb? I did, I've seen that, yeah. It's my car. It's essentially my car. They've named the car out to me. Link & Co., your thoughts. What's Link & Co.? Is that the taxi? Link? No, I don't know what that is after that. Colin McNulty, Mondeo love to drive, bit of crap on the inside storage. Could be a huge car, very big car. I think Ford may have run into problems when they brought it out as a global platform. The whole global idea. Because the Mondeo actually comes out in the US as well. I don't think it's called a Mondeo order, but I think they call it something else. But it looks identical. There's no difference whatsoever. So I'm not sure why they didn't go something specifically European as well while they're at it, No, really going. They are going to keep on taxing the average working person until we no longer afford to buy a new car for green reasons, but people with money can always find ways around it. Well, I wouldn't blame people with money, right? I wouldn't necessarily blame people who are wealthy in that, but I think there's a less of effect. I think people who are looking for a new car, the step from where they are to where we want them to be, or where electric car ownership needs to be, that step is quite big for some people. Some people just cannot make that step. It is big. You're talking about 49,000. If you take away the grants, which I hate the grant thing, I hate it. And I know I have to quote the prices with the grants taken out, and I know all this stuff. But really, the grant distorts the price of electric cars massively. So when you look at the price of a Hyundai Kona currently, it is €49,000 to buy it. And it's a tiny 5-door hatchback at best. It's not much bigger than a Renault Zoe, right? It's not bigger than a Renault Zoe. It's about the same size as a Renault Zoe. There's much, like a Seat Leon is a far bigger hatchback than a Hyundai Kona. But yet there's 20 odd grand between the two of them, like just because one's electric. And I know there's options in it, like active cruise control, and there's other stuff like Apple CarPlay. That's all pretty much in ordinary cars as well. The cost differential cannot be that size and letting ordinary people pay that kind of money to step into it. Like I know statistically speaking, most people who are buying electric cars work in IT. They've got good incomes, they've got good jobs. A lot of them are actually first-time car buyers. A lot of them have never bought a car before. So they're moving straight from no car to electric. And so they don't have a history. So it's not really in their blood to go and figure out how much cars are, to negotiate over cars. So there's a lot going on in that segment. And the more you look at it, the more you realize that it's a new segment, that we can't, dragging people from petrol and diesel into electric is going to be quite a difficult task, particularly when costs are hidden. Like right now, like dealerships doing this, or like everybody doing this, like I've demonstrated sponsored articles in the Independent, sponsored articles in the Journal, and they're not being clear of how much the running costs these cars are. If you take away the actual plugging bit in the charge on your electricity, yes, of course, if you're going to drive 40 to 50,000 kilometers a year in an electric car and you're going to charge predominantly at home, I would say the vast majority at home, you're definitely going to save money. But if you drive 50,000 kilometers a year and you mostly charge at a fast charge point, you're going to waste more money than you would in a diesel. Like economically, these things don't work out so well. And I know, right? I can smell it already. How many people are going to quote what I'm talking about right now as being weird? But I'm quoting you articles that are getting people into electric cars. So I'm quoting you the Journal. I quoted you the Indo. I'm quoting you from the SEAI. I'm quoting you from. I can also quote you from, if you want to, we can go into Electric Ireland, which is right here in front of me. Here is Electric Ireland, smarter living. 3 things to think about before buying an electric car. Check your charging options, obviously. All electric or hybrid, new or second hand. Make the right decision for you. There is no word about the actual cost of running a car there. There's no conclusion as to how much it is to service one. The same stuff they just mentioned. The same thing. It's cheaper to run, it's cheaper to service because there's less moving parts. But really, is it any cheaper to service? Ronan Gilroy says, topic, ? Registration plate plus United Ireland could be reg system, long process, opportunity, nicer reference plate. No, they won't do that. We're in Europe, and until the only way you can unite Ireland is if Northern Ireland join us, because they'd have to join our economic system and our side of it and part of Europe, and it would all have to be homogenised into that before we could ever get to the point of actually even looking at reg plates or anything else like that. And I'm not sure there's an appetite on either side for United Ireland. I mean, politically, I'm not talking about the people. The people might want it, but politically, I'm not too sure. I think it's a very complex economic question because they're using UK sterling, and that the mess only begins there. I think that's where it only begins. Andrew Daly says, hi Bob, some nice MG EVs coming out, SUV and estate, loads of them. They're going to flood the market. I predicted that last year when MG launched here first, that Chinese companies will come and they will flood the market. This is good for us. It's good for choice. It's nice. But again, I was at another press conference by a car company the other day. They announced 18,000 jobs lost. Just 18,000. We're going to reduce our workforce by 18,000, just like that. And that comes to the fact of competition. It comes to them paying fines. It comes from them not having the need to make as many petrol engines and diesel engines. Those fitters, or what would have been called engineers or fitters, they're not as required anymore as they homogenize the power source of things. So that's European. That's 18,000 people just gone across Europe. That'll happen, and some of that would be coming from management as well, of course, but a lot of it coming directly from the factory floor. Not blaming MG in that respect, but I mean, the amount of electric cars is going to come in from Europe soon. There will be so much choice. It'll be great for us. We'll have so many cars we can choose from. It's brilliant. But realistically, whether a main dealer can actually sit there and just be a Toyota dealer forever when there's just so many other brands out there, or just be a Volkswagen dealer, or just be, I think multi-franchise is probably the way to go for most dealers if they're considering that, because right now it's very difficult to sit there and fight off this competition of having MG coming into the country at just a shade over 30 grand for a soft roader, off-roader, 4x4 looking kind of Qashqai Mazda looking car. I have one, so you can get them second hand, 28, 25, and they're nearly new. So if you're looking at going for an electric car right now, and you're looking at the difference between a Hyundai Kona, we'll go back to the Kona again, at 49 grand, and then 10 grand after, making 39 grand, or you can have one for 32 grand, and it's twice the size of it. So it's that kind of stuff, that economy stuff, that's going to really start biting at dealerships in this country now soon. Particularly main dealers, I would imagine. I'd say it's quite a difficult future to look at right now. Andrew Daly, he said, a ball O'Connor, in the sale of baseball hats will go ballistic until barbers open. That's true. It's true. I do cut my own hair, in case anyone's wondering. I don't have a barber on standby, and that I actually cut my own hair here in the house. We bought a trimmer thing, and I just do it. But I have an easy haircut to do anyway. Christopher McConnell says, Elon Musk will start selling batteries and motors to other manufacturers soon. That's where I thought it was always going to go. I always thought Tesla didn't really want to be an electric car maker. They want to be a battery maker, a motor and battery maker. And I always thought that Elon Musk should have gone with Mercedes. When Mercedes was making an EQC, I don't know why it doesn't say Tesla inside on the back of it. I mean, that would be phenomenal. You think of how good Tesla's range is, how far you can get on just the bog standard range. Tesla Model 3 can go very, very far in a single charge, and they have the network all sorted out. If Tesla sold the rights to the network to Mercedes, and at the same time provided Mercedes with the batteries and the technology underneath, we would have Mercedes, a great car company, making very good cars, powered by the company who make very good batteries and motors. It seems like a win-win to me. I don't know why they didn't do it. Maybe they can make enough money on their own, but eventually I think Elon Musk and Tesla in general will become a battery manufacturer and a motor manufacturer for everybody else. And that's probably a good thing because it's easier to make money from that than it is to try and sell cars. Ben Moore says, hi Bob, sad times the 4Mondeo will be end of production 2022, which I'm sure was dead anyway. I mean, how many do you see around? You see older ones, you see second-hand ones, but you don't see too many of the new ones sitting on the road. David Hegarty says, we did that one. Ian Burrell, hi Bob from Fife. We're up there. Watching on Fire Stick and TV, the chat scrolls up in front of your face. Consider moving 6-inch towards the lamp. This way. That lamp. The lamp on that side of me over there. There's a big lamp up there in the corner. I need to adjust some of the lighting. I actually need to upgrade that camera as well, because I always do this as a radio show as much as I can. So it's not really, it was never really meant to be visual. It was always meant to be a sort of a radio show, so you kind of listen to the background. But people do watch it now as well. Ian Burrell, hi Bob, oh that's for 550. And Adrian, which car has the best cockpit focus to the driver? They've all got their, it depends what you like, it depends what you want, how much of a thing you want to see. I mean, for me, I want to see out the window with a heads-up display. That's why I can't understand why Tesla Model 3 hasn't got a heads-up display telling you the speed. So easy to put one just projected onto the screen. Heads-up display wherever possible just really focuses everything you need to know about the driver, and then you can keep the car on the road. With the automated driving systems, you can take your eyes off the road these days for a couple of seconds to change something on the stereo, on a motorway, I mean. That'll happen on normal roads because it's able to keep you in the lane and all. It's quite good when you get used to them. Paul O'Connor, the cost of motoring now, the powers that be are trying to get the average Joe back to the 1930s. They are. And now, I'm not EV bashing. What I'm saying is that EVs are about the same money to service as a petrol or diesel car. You've got to think of that sort. And this idea of less moving parts and stuff, there are different things that don't need servicing in a motor. Like there's no timing chains, belts, but there is stuff under the engine that need to be serviced like everybody else. So I still think that people need to be educated on what exactly it is that's driving electric cars, and the fact that that's just lies, that there's less to be serviced. There's different things to be serviced under the bonnet of them, and the variance in price of those things seems to be gigantic, you know. Bob, everything is starting a car wow for Ireland, losing grip on the dealers have here. It is in negotiation right now, Ed Malone. I'll be revealing the whole detail behind what I'm doing right now, but I am creating what you're talking about, Car Wow Ireland. Kind of. I'm not great. I'm moving in with a group that is I'm going to do something. You'll see next week we're going to be a big announcement next week as I work with a particular dealership group here in the country, talking about second-hand cars and buying second-hand cars and second electric cars and creating effectively kind of a Kazoo Car Wow thing like the way the UK is doing. It's something I've wanted to do for years, to create some sort of a price thing. It will happen. It literally will be happening next week. Printer ink is still more expensive than coolant for EVs. I know. I recently went up to Tesco's to buy printer ink for this thing behind me, which is just a Hewlett-Packard standard printer, and it was 51 euro or something for 2 printer inks, and it's only like 100 mils or 150 mils of ink. Like, it's crazy. Don't send me something that has to be printed. I hate printing. I'm not printing anymore. I'm going to buy one of cheap Epson yoke and just buy something I can fill it up with every once in a while. Any update on how Ineos Grenadier will be sold in Ireland? I don't think it's going to get sold in Ireland. If I'm dead honest with you, I really don't think a lot of those cars are even going to bother coming to Ireland, because they're going to be they're a niche buy at best of times, and they're really expensive. So I'm not sure it's ever going to happen. My God, the chat has gone wild. 348 people watching. Make sure you click the like button. Thanks very much. You can support the channel as well, but if you want to support this kind of independent conversation we're having here, how you do it is a list of links down below. It's PayPal, Patreon, Super Chats, whatever way you want to do it, it's all okay. And it does literally support the independent thought that I have here. I've been able to ask questions like this. John Coleman, thank you very much for supporting by PayPal. You're very kind. That's what the upgrades are all about, by the way. That's what we're trying to do right now, is to keep that independent idea in our heads, to keep asking questions, keep getting those questions answered as much as possible too. Mark Turner Smith says, are you able to get an i20N press car for testing Bob Lux? I don't think it's even in Ireland, to be honest with you. I'm not sure their main focus is something like i20Ns anymore, or i30Ns or i40Ns. Any of those kind of fast cars, that's not what's selling here anymore. I mean, look how many Volkswagen Golf GTIs have been sold. None. They're sold out, they say, but there was very few of them in the first place. Cosmo 187, hi Bob, do you think Ford are teaming up with Google? Shouldn't VW and everyone else give up on messing with their own software and go cooperate with Google and Apple and let them do what they're good at? Yes. Volkswagen said they're going to become a software company. It's what they actually said in their own press conference. That was their words, not my words. I didn't interpret that. They actually said it, that they're going to become a software company. So how good that software could be. I mean, do you want Google in your car? Google is everywhere, right? Apple is everywhere. Do you really want them in your car, controlling stuff within your car as well? Imagine the state when our overlords of the near future, I'm sure sometime in the future, will project a Google ad onto the windscreen of the car while you're driving down the motorway, because, you know, you've nothing else to do because the car is self-driving anyway. So you might as well watch a movie, right? So to project a movie onto the windscreen. I know this sounds mad, but I've seen that at Geneva Motor Show. I've already seen this idea being floated a couple of times. The living room in your car, you know, the ability to be able to turn your seats around and look at each other. and play with the kids, or what we're actually going to do is look at TikTok, you know, and look at a Google ad or something. I think that's more where those kind of guys will have hookups. And I know Apple is going to make a car. They were currently negotiating with a Hyundai for a little while, but Apple pulled the plug on that one because they didn't like, Hyundai was putting out press releases saying we're making an Apple car. Apple didn't like the idea. I was like, no, we're not going to do that. So we're not going with Hyundai now. So they dropped Hyundai. So it will come. I just don't think they have any interest, Google. I think what Google want to do is give the software over, the self-driving software and the mapping systems, that sort of stuff behind it. I think is where Google will probably win. Although Apple Maps has become pretty good. So I'd say it'd be okay. Paul Byrne says, my next service is 45,000 kilometres with Opel. See what I come up with. Yeah, get a quote for me, will you? And send it to me. bobflavin@nextgear.com. I'd be very interested to read what it is, to see, is this normal? Is this gazumping? Is dealerships looking to build up their service? Because service department is a very, very important part of any dealership. The service department is where money can be actually made, proper money. Because selling new cars doesn't have a great big washout in it. There's not huge money in that. You could sell a lot of them, still not make a whole lot of money. You make more from second-hand cars and from servicing, which can be sent out as well. I'm not saying that dealers are involved in any sort of shady deals around, but I just mean that realistically we could be looking at something here that people don't realise could happen to them very easy on the price of their cars, and that's just going to be scary for people to imagine buying a new electric car and you're told that it's going to have less servicing. You're taught by all these lovely articles in the SAI saying less servicing, less moving parts, it'll all be okay. Then you find out about a bill with 900 and something euro. Like, it's scary. Especially if you're high mileage, which I see a lot of electric car buyers asking me, it's going to be much cheaper, can we drive a lot of miles and save money? And I'm answering yes, because if they charge the car at home and they drive 50,000 kilometers a year, they're going to save a ton of money on fuel, a huge amount. So that's pretty good. I can't pronounce Adrian Landry. Thank you very much, Adrian, for the donation on PayPal. Thank you very much, very kind. Panda Bat, hi Bob, notice UK electric car prices dropping during the week to be eligible for some grants. Will same price drops a car here? Probably not. The caps are slightly different here. So like there's a cap here. Is it 50 grand? I think the cap is here. Over 50 grand you get a different BIK, and under 50 grand is different. So there's different levels of stuff. If we start with those cap things, you'll find the price of the cars will change as well. But if the price of the UK cars are changing, it's pretty good for us because we get them second hand. But we'll see now what happens. Mr. Craig Buckley says 2017 Hyundai EV 70,000 kilometres, never paid more than €70 for the annual service. So there's a completely different answer. We've gone from 960 quid to 70 quid. Right, so this is what I'm talking about. This is the difference. How do we work out what's gone wrong then in the dealership saying they're going to change all the fluids in the car? It's going to cost 960 quid for a service, but this man here has 2017 Hyundai EV and has never paid more than 70 quid. So is it the dealership, or is it just because he got lucky with the car and didn't need that and done to it? Kevin M says, no listed cost for EVs. Oh, Bob, just trust them. I know. That's the thing. Just trust everybody. I don't understand how I'm able to go to the UK, even Australia. I even found an Australian website somewhere here. I'll do it in a minute. Here we go. Look at this. This is an Australian website called Cars Guide, reviews and cars and stuff. Look at, they've even got a grid. They've got a grid. Average cost of service over 5 years, total cost over 5 years. They've got it all worked out on every kind of car, petrol, diesel, electrics, and everything else. Doesn't mean a damn thing here, but you can see that they have their prices sorted and how often it has to be serviced and how much the service is. That's a V6 Santa Fe. But there is electric version of that as well. I didn't show it in the screen with the electric version, but I did find the electric one on the same site, easy enough to find as well. These things are so easy to find in other districts. We just don't seem to want to do it here, to actually announce the cost. And I know it's a small country, lads, but realistically, if you have someone here on a chat who's quoting 60 quid for a service in Opel, 70 quid in Hyundai, and I'm still getting sent things that says 960 quid, there is something wrong with the pricing. There's something going very wrong there very quickly. Cormac Hick says, hi Bob, thoughts on E-Tron versus Model 3. If you're talking about the big E-Tron, the big off-road yoke, just buy a Model. If you want to do range at all, just buy the Model 3, okay? Because the E-Tron's not great for range. It is much bigger, much heavier, much harder on fuel. It's a gorgeous looking machine and it's really well put together. To drive, it's probably better than the Model 3, and the software and things inside are just as good, pretty much just as good. If you like Audis, you're going to love e-tron, but if you want to do any sort of mileage and you don't want to drive yourself absolutely mad trying to charge it up every day, then you want a Model 3. The time I had Model 3 here, I charged it to bring it back, and I didn't even really need about that. I could have got away without that charge. So Model 3 is the one I would go for in those two range. Have a look at ID3 as well, though, while you're at it, if you like the look of it. Jan Stigvert, thank you very much for sending in a donation. You're very kind by sending by PayPal. You're very good. You can do channel memberships here as well, or Patreon if you want to do that either. You want to do a little drip feed thing, it's kind of cool. Paul O'Connor says, bottom line, the servicing cost per 100,000 kilometres are the same for EV versus diesel. With the extra cost of EV, no money saving, short-term fuel cost, but you need to spend thousands to get an EV. I'd agree with most of that as well, Paul. In fairness, you do have to fork out for a home charge unit, which even with the grant is going to cost you 500, 600, 700 euro, somewhere in that region. Now, you only have to do that once, right? So you're not going to put that in. It's not going to be an ongoing cost, but once it's in, you've got choices. The grant only comes when you can prove the parking space. It's still such a dark age thing, isn't it? But the grant only comes after you've taken a picture of the car outside the house. It seems stupid, but I think they might be changing that in the near future, or if they haven't already changed it now. But it just seems like this huge upfront cost. Then it continues on. This upfront cost continues on with servicing and everything else. Colin Whelan says, Conan, now over 2 years, servicing has been cheaper than diesel, but there are costs. Yeah, I'd agree with you, definitely. I mean, the amount of, there has to be some, everything is the same drivetrain style, right? So we still have suspension, track rod ends, arms, tires, all that stuff is still quite normal. I know they're specifically for EVs, they've got different kind of shock absorbers in them, but realistically they are all still the same. They could still wear out at the same rate. You'd still might have to change your shock absorbers in 3 or 4 or 5 years time, like you would on a normal petrol diesel car. It just, I hate this. The more I looked at all of these different things over the week, the more I realized that every article that was for electric cars, every single one of them said the same thing, that there's less servicing to do. There'll be less things that can go wrong because there's less stuff working underneath the bonnet. And that's just wrong. That's not right. They still have to be serviced like any other car. And I've had a petrol car serviced in a local dealership here for €99. And that's in a main dealer. I've had it serviced. My own Seat Leon was serviced in a main dealer for that, and there was no discount. So there was no like Bob discount or any sort of trade discount. Nothing. It was just €99 for a normal service. So, and I can buy my service car now. You can't service an electric car yourself, but I bought my service kit for my own Seat Leon. Service kit's about 70 quid. It takes about 2 hours to do the whole lot. I don't charge for my own time to do my own car, obviously. So 70 quid ish, and then about 20 quid a month in petrol to do 6,000 kilometers a year. So if you're low mileage. If you're high mileage, fine. If you're going to charge at home, I think you save money that way. Frank Gooding says, always found SEAI and the like of EcoEye lack of any real detail. No shock to the country that they're out to rob you servicing the VRT a lot. Well, taxes, for sure. We are being rode into battle, boys, when it comes to taxes. As far as I'm concerned, we are being absolutely shafted on every front. Brexit has shafted us as well for second-hand cars, completely. We didn't even see it coming. No one's seen it coming. They didn't even announce it. It just happened in January. Suddenly it was 10% went up. Some dealerships have absorbed that cost. Other dealerships have passed it on to the end public. Eventually, no matter what happens, it's going to be passed on to the end user. Sooner or later, because the only one paying VRT and taxes is the end user anyway. Everything else is paid to the government. So even if a dealership brings in a car here, they don't VRT it till the car is sold, and so you're still paying that cost, so it doesn't matter. Colin Williams says, also, I want to know garage and dealers will be there to service me when I need them. Service you. Sounds a bit wrong. But yes, I know what you mean. I understand that the dealership should be there. The service department should be there for your car, no matter what it is. But I really do think at the moment there is a little bit, because of the phenomenal wave of interest in electric car, and because young people buying electric cars can't ask daddy or mommy their opinion on electric cars, because daddy or mommy never had one. We've never been in that situation. We've never had this before. We don't have a history of this. So young people going to their parents to ask questions, and the parents are going, I don't know. But when they go online, what are they finding? The SAI articles. They're finding those articles that says it's cheaper to run an electric car. But if you buy it for 10,000 kilometers a year, it's not that much cheaper to run because you're not doing enough mileage to save money on electricity, you know? So there is bits on both sides. Also, Bagwell says, they don't want you in a car. No, well, I'd say that's probably true. In fairness, if you look at the Green Party or any of those Green Party, I'm not talking about the Green Party Ireland particularly, any of them across the world, the trick is to lower the amount of cars on the road rather than cleaning the cars up. Cleaning the cars up is just a step towards lowering the amount of cars. Marcus Boston says, in the US, my Passat used to cost me $175 for an oil change every 4 months. So I banked that savings and applied to any maintenance in my Model 3. That's true. Now, if you were doing that kind of servicing, that kind of every 4 months, changing over the oil out of the car, which is a regular sort of service department thing you can do in the US, you're definitely going to save money. In this country, you service a car once a year or at a certain mileage, whichever one comes first. So there is a bit of that kind of element of how much money you're going to spend on servicing your car, depending on how much you're going to service it. But the predominant sales tactic of electric cars seems to be in the articles: less servicing, less moving parts, cheaper to run, cheaper to do everything on. But actually, when you start drilling down into it, it's not much cheaper. The service end of it is still right up there, exactly where petrol and diesel cars seem to be, depending on your mileage. And I'm going to keep referring back to that first thing I said, which was 45,000 kilometers was the expected mileage to change the fluids in the battery, which is the expensive bit. Now, you could do 45,000 kilometers a year, easily in electric cars, easily. So if you're doing that kind of mileage, that's what's going on right now. Colin Wheeler says, I do feel there's some gouging in the EV servicing, looking for things to charge just to justify their existence. Well, yeah, if you think about it, Colin, as well, same thing, like the service department is getting less business because if electric cars are more dependable, and we don't really know that they are more dependable yet, we've only had them, I know we've had them about 10 years, but really it's only been in the last 2 years, or even the last maybe 3 years, where they're starting to make an impact into the market. So I suppose the servicing stuff starts to come in because they're starting to get more services in. And so at the moment, there's probably very few electric cars going in for a proper service. But the ones that are going in, like a Nissan Leafs or the Hyundai Konas, the popular cars that are going in for services, that means there's one less petrol and diesel car that's going in there, which means the service has dropped down. So they're looking for stuff to do, I'm imagining it. Paul is here brewing. Is here brewing? What are you brewing? Oh, yeah, sorry. Hi, Bob. Just had a first service on a 2020 E-Niro, €125, 60 quid for labour, 42 for a cabin filter, and €2.08 for a screen wash. 2 quid for a screen wash. Bloody hell. You can get screen wash like 50 cents in a petrol station and then just top it up with water. But forget that for a minute. 125 quid there for a E-Niro 2020, which is one of the Hyundai Kia cars. So there's a completely different quote, entirely different quote. And that was a 2020. So the first service is done. It's 125 quid a year. If you would do that service again next year. Anyway, Patrick Walsh, have you seen the Dacia Duster EV, 40 horsepower or something? Reminds me of Pat Mustard's milk float. I'd say that'd actually be pretty good, that Duster EV. Just depends on the range, obviously. Cross 13, who is a Tesla Model E driver, or Model 3 driver, sorry. My servicing costs, X tires, forget about tires, okay? Leaf over 4 years, 170,000 kilometers, €480. i3, 5 years, 200,000 kilometers, €360. Model 3, 1 year, 31,000 kilometers, nothing yet. So there you go. There's 3 cars, 3 different service costs. So I would say that is at least the same, if not better prices than a petrol car. So you'd be in that. Petrols are quite cheap to service compared to diesels. Diesels can be very expensive to service, in excess of €200 easy for a diesel. But petrol can be serviced a little bit cheaper. The range wise, and I think I've seen two of the 3 cars that Cross has there. And they're in really good condition. I mean, well-minded. Now, you'd have to factor in tyres into those range as well. If you start, tyres are just tyres. They wear out. So they wear out in every car. But Cross would be a high-mileage person. Jimmy Penrose, if they inspected the car first and said you need the coolant, you might say, okay, but every 45,000 kilometres is a joke. It's just not the first of it. I know, it's scary. If you were to go in and say, listen, how much is the service in that car? To go, well, that's okay. Well, you don't need coolant this time. And if I take away the price of that, of the coolant out of it, like look at the price again, take away that €737 out of the service cost, and you're left with the rest of the stuff. Like, that completely changes the quote instantaneously. The quote is completely different. So if they were to inspect the fluid, or if they were to say something to you going, you need to have the fluid done because the computer says it's gone bad, or I don't even know why you change the fluid. I haven't a clue what that's about. Lincoln Co. is the new car brand made by Geely and Volvo. Are you not up to date? No, I'm not up to date, that's for sure. I haven't been paying attention now. I've spent the whole week researching absolutely everything to do with this today. Lincoln Co. would be something I suppose is probably important to you. But when it comes to Geely and Volvo, Lincoln Co. seems to be flexible. Oh, the shareable stuff. That's been around for ages. This idea that you could consent to continue. You could, share your car out has been around for ages. I mean, even Geely and Volvo have been messing with the idea. Even in Sweden and Poland, you can pay a monthly fee to Volvo, and you can just choose whatever Volvo you want out of the range. That's it, right? Just you pick a S60 on Monday and an XC90 for Friday, and that's the way they work it out. But it's only from the Volvo range. That's rolled out in the UK already. You can already kind of multi-lease cars. You can just choose whatever car you want. You can change your car, I think, 4 times a month or something. That's crazy. It's really easy to do it, but it is coming. Noel Dillon says, excellent analysis and reveal of the service costs or running costs of PHEV and EV. We have to reveal it. We have to get some idea in our heads that how much this stuff costs. Because you can see even from the chat, there's different answers coming in from the users. You got 125, you got 70, you got 60, you got Cross there saying how much he's paid over all the years. Everybody seems to have a different price, and some of them seem like fiction. Another one seem like just somebody's throwing some numbers on a page in the spreadsheet and go, here's your quote. Let's hope he's not looking at it, he's just going to pay 990 quid for it. Alex McKinley. Bob, good day. Have you seen the new MG Marvel R, and what are your thoughts? Anything MG is doing right now is coming out of China, and it's brilliant. They're going to do a really good job. I'm really impressed with what they're doing. The Chinese are very, very, very much in control of battery technology, of low cost, low ability to be able to make good quality stuff in a very short space of time. They're very, very good at it. They've been doing it for a long, long time. I would be looking over my shoulder if I was any of the European car manufacturers right now, particularly the lower yield manufacturers like Volvo, who would be putting out really good cars at a certain kind of a cost. You know, they'll be ones to be pushed on. Renault will be in trouble there. Nissan will be in trouble as well. Those kind of car companies that are producing good mass-produced cars. Chinese come in and they produce good mass-produced everything. Yeah, go up to town there and have a look how many plastic things are for sale in those little pound shops, and every single one of them made in China, coming in by the boatload. Well, not at the moment, obviously. There's a boat after deciding he was going to try a handbrake turn in the middle of a canal, and it's now blocked up the whole place. Anyway, we'll come back to that one as well. Frank Gooding, Mrs. used to driving auto. She's used to my auto CX-5. We need a second car. Likes the idea of an auto Venga. Yeah, Vengas are okay. They're all right, yeah. Plenty of Mazdas out there. Mazda make good gearboxes. Another 1.6 would be a bit thirsty. Small miles, doesn't really matter. What do you think? You should be able to get a 117 or an 18 with loads of warranty left, room for 5 months old, so it's just critical. Yeah, that's the bang on car for sure. For low mileage stuff, yeah, if you want to. If you don't want the cost of buying something electric, of course. Cross 13 says the i3 still had its third, including a service under the €360 service package to go when I was sold at near 200,000 kilometres and still had 40% left on its factory brake pads. That's brilliant. I mean, that is really good. And I know, again, a word on some of the service stuff as well, because I did come across it today. Hyundai have service plans. Volkswagen have service plans as well. They can be bought at the point of sale. So when you're in there at the dealership, you can be sold a 5-year service plan. So you can predict more of the service cost. Now, not everything is included in that service plan, and I guarantee you the radiator cooling thing is not in the service plan. No way. That's €737. There's no dealership going to include that in the service plan. But I'd say that a lot of stuff would be included. Same for brake pads. I find the same on my MG as well. Once you set it to the resistance, to the regenerative braking, you tend to start using that as one pedal driving. So you just use acceleration, take your foot off, and the pedal recharges, and you're not using the brakes at all. Nice to see you too, Andreas Brown. Frank Gooding says, lockdown is a pain, but I can't believe how quick it comes around. Great hours, 2 hours replay. Thanks, Frank. It flies around. Weeks are flying by. Honestly, it is. It won't be long now. We'll get out of this and we'll go back to normal. Whatever normal is when we're finished, it'll be fine. But we'll all get there in the end. Keep the head straight for as long as you can. Neil Bennett, it's cheaper for the dealers to service electric. As I can remember, Nissan doing my Leafs was take a look around, top up the washer fluid and save it isn't passed on to the customer though. I have spoken to a Nissan mechanic who works at the dealership. So I did speak to one. And servicing a Nissan Leaf is actually very, very easy. There is some checks that has to go through, but most of them are just electronic. Most of them are just hooking up a laptop, and the laptop spews out some error codes if there is any, or just says it's all okay. But the charge for that is that 120 quid, or the, you know, when I showed you the one from £159 for a minor service, which is what was listed on Whatcar. They say £159 for a minor service. That's the once a year servicing, but I've seen cheaper here. I've certainly seen €80, €90 being a standard sort of just plug it in and check that it, make sure everything's okay. I seen an article in the Irish Times a couple of days ago talking about how much mechanics are being billed out at by dealerships. which I know it sounds expensive when you talk about service costs, but that's not what the mechanic's getting paid. That's what the dealership are making. And then you have insurance, light, heat, stock, sales, all that stuff that has been brought into it. But it is, the prices are still all over the place. But I just think we need to talk more about the ongoing cost. And it's like there's things that are hidden in diesels, lads. Before we get too down on the electric cars, nobody talks about the price of AdBlue. Nobody. When they're talking about fuel economy, I don't do. I'm guilty of it as well. We don't talk about it because we don't see it as journalists. We get the car that's full of AdBlue. We just drive around. It tells you the fuel economy. You hand the car back after a week. AdBlue doesn't factor into it. We don't think about buying it, but yet it is a hidden cost in the price of the car. You have to buy AdBlue, or the car won't even start if you take the AdBlue out of it. So the service cost of car really needs to be talked about on all fronts, not just electric cars as well. There's my missus. How are you? What's that? Lemon and ginger. My wife is trying to look after me these days. She really is trying to make me feel very healthy and very well looked after. And lemon and ginger tea is what's being brought in today. No more caffeine. Although I do have now guilty coffee in the morning. You know, you have to have a little bit of coffee. But yeah, so we do need to talk more about the prices of service parts, service bits and pieces, and even just ongoing costs like AdBlue and diesels. There is gasoline particulate filters coming in for petrol cars. They're already kind of there. So there is some sort of an AdBlue thing being talked about for petrol cars as well. For PHEVs, that will also include. And the same applies to even looking at PHEVs. We don't talk about the service costs for the batteries and those. There's so many things we don't really pay attention to over the lifespan of a car. So that's the kind of weird stuff you have to talk about. Just with the horsepower. Rental worst degradation. Sorry, I'm reading through someone else's there, but battery degradation is a big thing. Now, that's a big concern. And if I talk to people who are non-EV people and ask them about what their main concern is, every one of them, without unprompted, will say within 5 years you replace the battery anyway, or within 10 years you replace the battery anyway. That's not actually true, but that's the belief. That's the idea in someone's head, and that's because that's coming from poor sources of information, but it's also coming from experience. So if you look at YouTube, you look at Instagram and place, you will find those stories where people are saying this car broke down and after 10 years I had to replace the battery and it's $6,000, and that's about right. We've already looked at the price of electric batteries online, how much it is to replace. It is about $5-6 for a Nissan Leaf battery, and there's none around. Like, it's not like you're going to be able to pick these up down to a local hardware store or something. These are going to have to be ordered in. Paul says, not looking forward to the third or fourth service on the E-Niro, as battery coolant needs to be changed at 50 to 70 euro per litre plus VAT. I think it holds 8 litres. Lads, that's scary. That's scary. I don't see, this is, again, this really only affects the second owner. And I've heard dealerships talk like that as well. This doesn't really affect you, it affects the next owner. You know, if the battery degradation kicks in at 6 years, you probably won't be the owner at 6 years. You know what I mean? You're just going to pass that problem on to someone else. So this is in people's minds. It is in people's thinking as well, how much this stuff costs, you know. John Jarrett says, my friend lives in the centre of Dublin. He would like to drive an electrical car, but he says it makes no sense as he lives on the third floor apartment. Is there any alternative you would suggest? There isn't any alternatives really. If he wants an electric car and he lives on the third floor, there is solutions coming. Talking to Des Mulhare and Mulhare Electric, EV Ready, they've spoken a couple of times about trying to work with local town councils and local council offices, and they've got equipment which can be installed where you can put in channels and things to make electrical cables come up anywhere you want on the road, and plug in devices and things that won't disturb anybody out there. So it is possible to do something. The problem is right now, if your friend is in an apartment block, the chances are there's only one fuse box and the bill is broken up electronically, but realistically there's no way of charging that particular apartment for the electricity they're using somewhere else. So that's going to be changed as well. I was literally talking to Des the other day, and it's coming from EV Box. They're creating a new fob system. It's going to be a commercial system really, but it tells where we're going with them, that you'll be able to ping on using a fob here to fob on at home. But also if you charge out somewhere like with ESB, you can use the same fob with them. It'll just charge your bill to home, which is a brilliant idea. I love that. It comes with a bit of a charge at the moment. That'll go away. But there's no alternative really at the moment. If he's in a third floor apartment who wants an electric car, he's going to have to figure out a way to get it charged to the house, or he's going to have to charge on the street, which I do not advise. If you're charging on the street on a regular occasion, you're going to spend a fortune, particularly if you have no home charger. You're just going to spend a fortune charging. Mark Williams says, I'm thinking about either a new Skoda VRS diesel or a Tesla. Which one to go for? It depends what you want. Skoda VRS diesel is great fun, great to drive. They're a beautiful looking car. They're huge as well. But all of that can be said by a Tesla Model 3. Now, Tesla seems to be coming under a lot of fire over the way it's been built at the moment. Their build quality is quite low. It seems to be that way. I didn't see it on press cars, but people are complaining about it the whole time. All you did see on my review of the Model 3 recently that it did have a broken glass roof. It's just the way it came. So whatever way you look at it, like, it depends on what you want to get out. If you're going to go Tesla, you're going to put in a home charger. You have to have one. Don't be talked out of that by anybody. You need a home charger with an electric car. Otherwise, you're wasting your time with it. If I was looking at one of those two, I'd buy the Skoda VRS because I really like to drive them. They're brilliant. But realistically, if I was driving a primary car in the house, the only car I'm going to drive is the main car every day, I'd probably go for the Tesla Model 3, believe it or not. Take me snap or something. Why don't car makers have a feature whereby your hazard lights will come on automatically when you engage reverse gear? But your big white lights come on the back of the car when you engage reverse gear. Why would you want a hazard? Because you're not really a hazard. You're just reversing. If you're a hazard while reversing, you probably didn't learn how to drive very well. Because you shouldn't really be a hazard when you're reversing. God almighty, there's a lot of you in the chat today. I'm going to try and root through them as much as I can, though. Coming along now. Hold on. I skipped by that one. There's that one. Frank Gooding. Guy in Naas had a ZS for under 23 grand registered from the UK with 9,000 miles. Great value. As I said last week, Bob pointed out my whole white arse didn't suit. I know, yeah, they're a bit narrow on the seats, and I suppose like they're okay the way they're built. They're not bad. I mean, I don't have a problem running one, but we're not really doing a lot of miles in it. Like, if we were doing a lot of miles, then I think I might step up to something a little bit better. You know, just build quality wise, it does feel like a reasonably priced car. You know what I mean? It's like kind of getting out of an Audi and getting, oh my God, it's lovely, and getting into a Kia or something. You know, it's reasonably priced for a reason. Shane Gamble says, hi Bob, what is your views on 2012 Saab 9.5 2-litre diesel automatic? Brilliant car, Shane. Whether you can get parts for it or not is a whole different question. But it's definitely a brilliant car. Was always good car. Saab 9.5, 9.3s, they're really good. Aero models as well. Automatic gearbox is fabulous. They're beautifully built. And they're a fun car to drive and own. But we'll be able to get service kits. We'll be able to get parts when something breaks on them. That's the problem. You can still get some parts, but not everything is there. Some stuff will have to be ordered from the UK. Joey says, I have a new Skoda Octavia style on order to replace my 17 RS. With number of options, 31 grand. List price was 33 grand, but options, as much as I'd like to go electric, the cost is just a bit much. It is, yeah. You're right. You can have so much stuff in a petrol or diesel car and get fuel economy. I mean, diesel is pretty, there's nothing weirder than jumping into something like I have right now, which a Volkswagen Arteon 2-litre diesel, and you press start and it pops up on the screen saying 800 kilometers to empty. And you go, right, okay. And you know at that 800 kilometers, it'll take you 6 minutes to fill it up and go again, right? You know. And I know that's, as an EV driver, I know that's kind of hard to deal with in your head, because you kind of go, well, electric cars are kind of the same. You have to pull over at some point. But literally the other day, I drove 400 kilometers as a round trip thing to do stuff, all to do with work, all going around the place. 400 kilometers later, and I still have nearly a little over half a tank of fuel in that thing. Like, it's crazy how far you can go in one shot. Automotive Martin says, service costs are high for EV when you consider there is not much to service, but garages need to be trained techs for warranty, so we need them to be doing something that is correct. We do, I suppose, to keep them busy in some way or another. But if you're billing out the difference between €60 we've seen earlier on, or €70 we've seen for a Kia, and that's for a Kia on my sheet as well, which is 990 quid. The variance in price is gargantuan. And I know for a diesel car, you eventually have to go in and get everything serviced on a car. And over that 1 year, 4 years into ownership, you're going to be paying 600-700 quid for a service because the car needs a timing belt or a chain or all that stuff. But if that's every 45,000 kilometers, that could be every year that you have to change that radiator coolant. And it's entirely up to the dealership. There's nothing you can do about it. If they say it's gone, it's gone. It's not working anymore. John Brennan says, would my money be safe in a Hillman Hunter? Hillman Hunters are holding their value pretty well. All of those old English, if it's an English classic car, they tend to hold their value very well. All of them do. I wouldn't expect to make big money on it. If you're paying money for it now, I wouldn't expect money to go up very much, but it certainly wouldn't go down. With an EV, you really need to understand high voltage, so DIYers need to be aware, says Automotive L3. Correct. There is really no user serviceable parts in an EV. I wouldn't advise opening anything. Frank Cuddy says, Car Wow Ireland would be amazing. Raising the Paddy Yanni in supercars would be awesome. That's hopefully, fingers crossed, negotiations are going very well. It won't be called Car Wow. It's not to do with Car Wow, but it's based upon the same principle as Car Wow. Is this idea that we can somehow get you a more reasonably priced car in a more open book pricing and more chance of you, or less chance of you having to negotiate a price or any, all that kind of stuff with proper reviews as well. So definitely going to happen. Graham Cullen says, yeah, I spent £60 on ink just because I had to print and send a form to the government. It should be all online. Absolutely, Graham. I still can't get the whole idea of having to go to a shop to get things printed or buy a printer just to print one page because it can't be done online. It seems insane. Bob, can you centralize yourself on camera? The chat feed is covered in face. Sorry, I was trying to get the chat feed. I always thought the chat feed would go this side for people, up along here so you could see it along the side. So I've always had space on one side, so I have to move over to the middle now. I can't today because I'm kind of stuck on one side of the screen, which is why the mic is right in front of me here, which is much closer than I normally would be, but I think the audio is a bit better. Richard Proudfoot, hi Bob. You need to get some Flavin merch on sale. Loads of other channels selling t-shirts and hoodies. It's on the way. Bobflavin.com. If you go over to bobflavin.com right now, you can sign up. You'll get an email when it's ready to go. It's almost there. I literally have spent the last 2 days working on shipping costs and putting together what we're actually going to sell on the channel. So there will be hoodies and things. There's stickers are being developed as well, hats and snoods and all kinds of stuff. And it'll all be stocked here. So it'll all be done here in Portlaoise. It's made here in Portlaoise and it's going to be delivered from here as well. So it'll all be an Irish product as much as I can. Unfortunately, we can't control where the actual hoodies are going to be built. Do you know there's very few places in Ireland that actually manufacture hoodies and snoods and any of that sort of stuff that is even remotely reasonably priced. It's crazy to think we used to be huge at that. We used to have Low Alpine, Fruit of the Loom. They were all here in Ireland at one time. Anyway, the merch is coming. bobflavin.com. If you want to go over there and put your email address in, you get an email as soon as we open the shop. Robert says, watch Misha Chardouin take a Polestar 2 round Nürburgring. Worth watching on YouTube, but my God, it puts you off performance EV. The sound is, I know the noise, it doesn't make any sense to me at all. Any of the electric cars, when you're going insane speeds, or even a 0 to 60 time in a kind of high performance Model 3, the fast one, the really fast one, and you put in the whole launch control and you're booting along and it took you 2.5 seconds all over, but there's no noise. There's nothing happens. It's no pantomime, but it's not scary. It's not. It just is whoomp, straight line and you're flying along. Whereas if you do that in a Ford Mustang, it's terrifying because the noise the car makes, it's just scary, Michael Hennessy says, Skoda charging $1,250 for a 3-year service pack on Enyaq. That's worth it? 1,250 quid for a 3-year service pack. That doesn't cover, obviously, that covers a general service stuff. That seems high, I'm sorry to say, but it seems like a lot of money to be spent on something that may never be serviced, if you know what I mean. Some of the things won't be covered, like that radiator coolant won't be covered in that either. That's going to be one of those parts that'll go. It's like windscreen wipers. They go on their own. Gabriel says, for the time being, I think hybrids outweigh electric cars, probably because this will change the next 5 to 6 years. Hydrogen might be alternative. Hydrogen's not going to go anywhere. Hydrogen's going to die a death. Even Toyota have kind of stopped talking about hydrogen now because it's just too hard to make it happen. And it's not very efficient either. But yes, over the next 5 or 6 years, there will be people who will move to hybrid. There will be people who move to PHEV. And they'll stay there for a couple of years. Then they'll move on to electric or they'll move back to diesel or whatever way they find their way through it. But right now, the biggest problem is just we don't talk about all the costs attached to EVs. They sound desperately cheap on paper until you start rooting about inside them. That's how the independence of the channel, that's how I can sit here and talk about these sort of things, because I don't have to be responsible to anybody else apart from me. John Jarrett says, no underground parking, no charging points nearby. That's a problem for anybody in apartments. Obviously, a lot of those apartments were built years ago. And like I said, there is technology coming to put in charge points and to be able to build individual apartments. That is on the way. But if you want a fast charge, no. Fast chargers require a substation thing to be built around it, which is why you see a little kind of house near fast chargers behind fences and walls and things. They're the fast charge yokes. They have to charge at different rates. Lack of charge points around every place is a big issue. Even the outskirts of London is not well served. Correct. That's why a lot of people were complaining. Now, England would probably be in a slightly better position than we are. There'd be more electric cars for a start, but also with a few more charge points, particularly in the larger cities. The further west you go in Ireland, the worse the infrastructure becomes, and the less dependable what's already there becomes too. So it's not just that there's less charge points, it's that a lot of the charge points are not being repaired regularly and are not up to standard. Also, I wanted to ask people as well, while I'm here, I did a first time I've ever done a fast charge, because we don't do enough mileage to do a fast charge on me MG. And I went to a fast charge point and it would only charge at 30 kilowatt hours, 30 kilowatts. That's it. That's the max it would go to. On a 50 kilowatt or 150 kilowatt, 30 kilowatts is the max would go in. That's it. And I don't know why. I've Googled it. I've routed about through every setting on the car. I've tried everything I can find. Nothing. From a CCS charger, I could get 30 kilowatts charge, which makes no sense to me at all, which is another problem I have with electric cars. You buy an electric car, it's like, what is going on with the car? But anyone know anything about that? I know the MGs aren't big sellers yet. I've been in touch with MG Ireland. They're going to sort all of the software problems on the car that I habited from the last service. A lovely Natasha phoned me to go, yes, we'll fix whatever's wrong with it. Okay, but we have to get the social distancing thing has to be solved first before we do anything like that. Automotive Tree says VW used to own Gidas, which is a software company, and they announced last week they aim to be the biggest software company in the world for autonomous driving. Correct. And that's what they were at all the time during that press conference, was we're going to be an automotive software company. That's Volkswagen. That's the boss of Volkswagen at the press conference, which I found amazing to listen to the guy talk. Very good speaker, very good at structuring a sentence out. Very surprised how straight up they were. And I know they're trying to make up for a point where in history where they were using their MD was doing a lot of lying for them. But at the same time, you're looking at the guy and go, this guy's very believable. This sounds like something they really want to do. I think they're interested in the right area. PG Doherty, I don't think I thanked you. Thank you very much for Super Chat. You're very kind. I'm answering question 247, so I'm way behind you. I apologise. I will catch up on you though. Thomas McCarthy, fuel costs have gone crazy lately for diesel. €68 to fill the car last week. Used to be €48. 3 things are happening there. The VAT rate change. VAT went from 21% to 23%. So it's gone up by at least that 2%. But also the cost of crude oil has risen. Also, there's a lunatic captain after beaching his car in the Suez Canal, which has also affected the price of petrol and diesel, as a lot of the Suez Canal would be the busiest place to get anything from that side of the world to this side of the world comes through the Suez Canal. So they're trying to unblock it. I don't know if you've seen pictures of it, but it just looks like he pulled a handbrake turn and didn't quite go to plan. God knows how they're going to fix that. They don't seem to put a whole lot of effort into it. Any pictures I've seen seems to just have a digger standing beside it. Just a digger, just to push it back out, just like, go away. The world shipping is on its knees, and that's what they've sent to JCB to fix it. But you're right, the petrol and diesel prices have risen here quite a lot. I know, reading about it recently, that electricity prices are going up as well, not by the same amount, but electricity prices are going to rise. Gas prices are going up, oil prices have gone up. Cost of living prices is rising quite dramatically here. There is, I do predict ahead that we will go into another boom now. We will start to move into a boom, not a recession. I think the economy is going to bounce back very quickly, and you'll see a lot of new money being spent into the market again. I think that's going to happen, but we have to be very cognizant of one thing, and that is PCP. There is a bubble happening out there. It's been happening, and we've been predicting it on this channel for a number of years. It definitely is starting to happen here. There is nearly every car on the bleeding road now is PCP'd. That's essentially how they're selling cars. Patrick Butler says, hi Bob, I have a 4-year 520 diesel, only 40,000 kilometres on it. I'd love to go electric, but the dealer was 33,950 quid to go to ID4 Max. I don't know, they'll probably just drive it on like I do with 520 diesel. Why we just wondering why we're looking at the Max one. The Max one is very expensive compared to its mid-range one. And I know there's an entry-level one that's coming as well. I wouldn't go for the entry-level one necessarily, but the Max one is the one that has the highest range on it. And I know, talking to Volkswagen, talking to Tesla as well, both of them say that people are buying their long-range cars and don't really need them. Like, they could easily just do with their standard range. So maybe have a look at the price of the standard range one before you look at the ID Max, unless you particularly want to go as far as you possibly can. Colin McNulty says, I paid €150 for an annual service on an Octavia RS at 30,000 kilometres. See, petrols and diesels, they're cheap. They're not as cheap to run, but they're cheap on servicing. Michael Hogan says VRT is an illegal tax under EU law. Well, import duties is an illegal tax. So if you've paid tax on a car, or if you pay tax in any EU country on the product you're buying, it's now you've paid tax, end of story. You don't pay tax again in the country. This has always been the debate to be having the VRT thing, in that you're re-taxing the car again coming into the country. Now, the problem we have is people tell you, oh, no, you can't talk about VRT. You can't, no, don't be talking about VRT. But actually, we need to talk about VRT, because VRT is a tax that is now not paid by dealerships. That's why dealerships and why the SIMI aren't up in arms about the whole VRT thing anymore, because we've got used to paying it. And realistically, the only people who are paying are people who are buying the end product car, the one that you actually buy off the showroom floor, is you paying the VRT. So it doesn't affect the dealership. They don't pay it. They don't pay it till the car is registered. So it's driving up the price of cars. So cars look distortedly expensive here, really seriously expensive here. And no matter what EU country you look at, cars look like they're cheaper. Now, there are taxes in other EU countries that drive up the price there too, for sure. But the VRT thing here is becoming a massive ball ache. And particularly now with the Brexit thing, driving another 10% on top of that again, which is just crazy. And if you look at it, whether it be an illegal tax or it's just a tax that should never be paid in the first place, it is a tax. It's a tax on your car. Almost the same as saying that the NCT is a tax on your car. It is, because you have to pay it every 4 years or 3 years when you buy the car new, every year when the car gets old. So it's effectively another tax on your car. So if you start calculating all these things into it, and I don't know how NCT is going to go for electric cars, but when you start calculating all these things into it, cars are really, really expensive to own now. They're not just a luxury anymore. Now they are a serious outgoing for people. It's the second biggest outgoing that anyone has in their life. Paul Burns says, you like to say Leon PHEV. I like Leons are good. Stay away from the FR one because the suspension's a bit weird in it, but the rest of them are fine. I like them, yeah. They updated their software recently so they don't get those kind of crashes on wireless Apple CarPlay. Although I do note that there has been a couple of crashes of their interface on the Volkswagen Arteon I have outside. The sat-nav just suddenly resets, just while you're driving along, just goes off and then comes back on again. It fixes itself. It seems okay, but it's just if you're in a hurry to actually listen to something on the radio, it's not the greatest thing in the world. Automotive says, brake pads last 5 times longer on EV and hybrids, no gearbox, clutch, engine oil or air filter. Yep. So why isn't the service dirt cheap then? Like, why is that 990 quid the one that we're looking at? Why aren't we looking just at, I don't know, 60 quid? I mean, there is a pollen filter in them for sure, because they've got normal pollen. Or there might even be, the Tesla one. What's that one called that they have? It's not just a pollen filter, something, a HEPA filter is in those ones as well. So there is that too, which would be a big filter. So there is some filters in them. They're not completely devoid of total filter stuff. But no, there's no clutches or engine oils or any of that sort of stuff put into it. But there is radiator coolant, which is the new engine oil. Dave McCarthy, that coolant cost is odd. My Chevy Bolt EV, first scheduled maintained at 150,000 miles, which is for the coolant replacement. Yeah, mad, isn't it? I think you had to replace every 45,000 kilometres on some. And like I said, Volkswagen ID4 said there's no charge. No, it's fine. That's not going to happen. I'm not going to do that. So whether this is an anomaly or not, we need to clear that up, obviously. But this is a genuine quote coming from a genuine Kia dealership. So it's there. God, that tea is lovely. This is number 0. Says, will Tesla let you use cheaper aftermarket shocks? Thought not. I don't know. None of the electric cars would allow you to do much aftermarket stuff on them, really. You're not going to do a whole lot on that anyway, because there's not a whole lot to do under the car, because like it's an electric car, so there's very little under there. But even if you want to change out the shock absorbers, make them lower or whatever, I've seen pictures of that already. Model 3, completely changed over, looking completely different. Cross 13 says, apart from doing the brake fluid every 2 years and more doing some visual inspections and for wear and damage, the only reason to service an EV is to keep up to warranty. After the warranty, I wouldn't bother. There you go. Sarah Kelly says, hi Bob, how are you? I'm okay, Sarah, how are you? M. Don, most people can't afford electric cars, Bob. The Green Party are bringing a lot of needless taxes into Ireland. Ireland is not going to save the planet through carbon taxes. We won't do it alone, that's for certain. You driving an electric car for the rest of your life isn't going to do a whole lot to save global carbon taxes. But if we're all in it together and all of the EU countries do it, then yes, carbon emissions will lower. And I mean, you walk down anywhere in Dublin, stroll around Dublin, and just get the smell of fumes from the cars passing by you. And then you can literally hear and smell the electric cars passing by, because, you know, it's a totally different feel to the whole thing, which is, I admire the idea of trying to get down to carbon taxes. Carbon is being criminalised nearly at this stage as to something we should be getting rid of. But everything creates carbon. Everything we burn in the whole world creates carbon. Everything. So it's not just cars. The idea that it's just cars, we got rid of them is insane. But if you want cleaner air, yes, electric cars, 100%. Car emits nothing when it's driving by you. And we've already gotten rid of the peat-fired power stations here in the Midlands. There was 3 of them. I think they're all closed now. And anything else was doing coal or any of that stuff, that's all disappearing as well. They're all the carbon emissions are dropping all the time. This is all to do, of course, with trying to meet targets for EU. And they want to get rid of all their carbon emissions thing, just get rid of it altogether. Paul Byrne says, it'd be great if everyone did a service their cars in Ireland. The amount of diesels with black smoke I see every day. Yep, absolutely. The amount of cars that you hear running terribly roughly all the time. People can't really afford services, and they always put it off till the light comes on the dashboard. You know, until something happens, till something serious happens to the car, they don't even call a dealership. And there are plenty of owners out there who pick up a car, and the first thing they want to do is wait until they're told what to do with it. Right? They don't actually want to be involved in servicing. So the way servicing is going right now is, I know this from Ford, I know from Volvo as well, the same thing. Essentially, the car dials home. Essentially, the car will dial back to the main dealers going, yeah, you know, I need a service in 1,000 kilometres. And the dealership will then phone up to arrange to pick up the car and get it done. So it's even come to that level of laziness now that people don't want to be involved in even booking a service anymore. They just want it to automatically happen. So that's going to happen. And it will continue going that way too. I don't think that's going to change. I think people are actually that lazy. John Gerard, why is Apple Maps so bad? They're always crap, to be honest with you. Can't even hospital in Limerick, not the town. Always trying to reroute me off to the NS bypass, even though it's been there for at least it's there for the last 12 years. It doesn't update as much as Google. They didn't do as much mapping. Now it has gotten better, Apple Maps. What I find really problematic is if you want to go to an air code, it's fine. A postcode thing, they're all okay. They can all do that. But if you want to type in, I don't know, Harvey Norman's or, you know, some brand name yoke, it hasn't a clue. Whereas Google Maps will pick that up. So if you want to type in local hospital, it'll find that for you. But Apple Maps is not that quick at it. So it seems to have the problem of language. But of course, Google is the ultimate search engine. So they're well aware of how to make that search work, you know. I'm still drinking this thing. Keep me going here. Another half an hour to go yet. We're all right. Keep your questions coming. I'll catch up on you. Cross 13 says the Tesla warranty doesn't require servicing. The BMW i3s was 2 years but had no mileage specified. My first service was at 87,000 kilometres. Leaf was 1 year, 30,000 kilometres. Only visual inspection needed alternate years. Craig Buckley says not all EVs have liquid cooling. This may be a key variable. Hyundai Ioniq EV is air cooled, not liquid cooled. Is that true? I know they don't haul. I thought Ioniq was liquid cooled though. I thought the Leaf had a problem because they didn't put liquid cooling in. They had a problem with it because it can't take a fast charge twice a day because it's not cooled properly or something, if memory serves. I didn't know that the Ioniq wasn't liquid cooled as well. Dave McCarthy says the EV service cost will be fudge from dealers. They want to steer buyers to ICE or because EVs need so little service, they need to gouge them when the car does come in to be looked at. That's one way of looking at it. Could be, David. That's why I'm saying that the price of service here, even in the chat today, live from ordinary people, has had a variety of 60 quid to 990 quid. That's a long way. But the average right now from the chat seems to be coming out 60, 70, 80 or 120 or somewhere around that region. So below 200 euros essentially for electric cars, which means that this service sheet that I have here is an anomaly or possibly just been set out because someone doesn't know how to do it. Conman says 2010 Mazda 2 oil air filters, 5 litres of oil, €32. Change it myself, Bangonomics work. There you go. I'm the same. My own say it, Leon. About 70 quid for a complete service. That's the air filter, the oil itself, 4 spark plugs, and then of course a general sort of tidy up under the bonnet and a few other bits that they do as well, checking lights and bulbs. Now, I would say total cost maybe €80 for everything, even if I had to change a bulb or two, and that is including labour because it's me. Now, I have a deal with a local garage here to do the recycling of the oil, which is So that's a big benefit, because otherwise you'd have to do something with the oil at the end of it as well. Hold on, to getting text messages here. Oh, yeah, we're all right. Des, right. Come on, Des. I'm getting text messages from people as well. All the messages are coming in from everywhere. It's great. Paul O'Connor, this has definitely stirred up something here today, talking about the service costs of cars. Paul O'Connor says, standard service cost of my Skoda Superb 2 litre is €165 every 15,000 kilometres. DSG circa 220 every 60,000. Timing belt and pump, €600. So if you look at it that way, we're talking about the same sort of cost. It's a little bit cheaper, so £600 for the timing belt and pump versus £990 for the coolant, radiator coolant thing, is quite a difference in price though. That's from a main dealer too. So Paul O'Connor's got it bang on here, in that petrol and diesel cars can actually be substantially cheaper to keep on the road at the same sort of mileage, 15,000 kilometres. Now, if you were to double that, of course, again, we're not taking in the price of actual fuel here, right? So that's not the concern here. Fuel, if you start factoring in fuel and you're doing high mileage, the EV is going to work out to be cheaper, probably. I'd be interested to find out if it is substantially cheaper, but it certainly will be cheaper. Cosmo 187 says, Lidl started doing cars in Germany, £99 a month, all in. Wouldn't work here as cars are insured in Europe, not personal drive. That's correct, yeah, because our insurance companies here are mad in the head. So you have to insure yourself here on a car, whereas in Germany, and same in New Zealand and stuff, you insure the car. Doesn't matter who's driving it. Once they have a license to drive the car, they're insured on it. So £99 a month, all in. Would you pay that? Would you go into Lidl here in Ireland and rent yourself a car for £99 a month, all in? Everything paid for, apart from obviously fuel, but everything else paid for, because I've seen that in a number of countries coming in Europe now. I think that coolant charge is a dealer taking advantage. That system is sealed unless there is contamination or fluid or manufactured badly. If either is likely a warranty issue. Yeah, I would tend to agree. I even see the price first going, that's not possible. I would have heard before now, at some point, some other electric car owner would have sent me that sheet going, this is £990 for service, I'm not paying it. So we'll take it to be a sort of an anomaly, or maybe it's price gazumping, or it's something along the lines. But obviously, this is coming from a dealer. I can reference back who the dealer is. So it is definitely coming out of a dealer. It is coming out of Irish pricing as well. And that's my second time to receive that from two different sources, two different dealers. I even got one from a dealer in the UK. So it's the third time technically, but in Ireland twice. As Cross points out, look in the manual. What does the service schedule actually say? Because it says at the top of that sheet, I can fade back to it again. Service, carry out 45,000 kilometres, 36 months service as per handbook, says at the top of the page. So it is actually on the sheet to be there. This has been the fastest. We've only 20 minutes left. This has been the fastest Sunday service I've ever had been in. Dave McCarthy says, probably true. Dealers know their time is numbered and there will be a third less dealers in 10 years. I'd say we may even move faster than that. I think generally speaking right now, dealers are looking at themselves as their dealership model. I've heard it multiple times. Thank you, Jim Shedge, for sending some money by PayPal. You're very kind. That supports the independence of the channel. Bless you, my child. But definitely dealers right now, if you're a dealer, and I know dealers pay attention to this Sunday Service podcast every single week, but I know dealers right now are looking at the way they're carrying out business. They're trying desperately to get their sales staff to pay more attention to electric cars. Because sales staff are very, very well trained up on, and usually years of experience on selling a petrol and diesel car. And because you just sell a petrol, they come in, you go, I like that car, there's the trade-in, the car's gone, no more to think about. Whereas with electric car, it requires sales. It requires explanation, it requires support, it requires installing home charge points like the way Des does as well, where a dealership would recommend someone to install the charge point at home. It requires all those kind of things. So it requires a relationship to be built, and that's where a lot of sales staff are struggling, because they work on the commission system, and the more commissions they work on, the more units they want to sell. And electric cars don't really sell in that same sort of unit way. It's not quite as straightforward as that. It works and it has to be ordered, and they're much more expensive, and there's finance and things. All that stuff has to sort out. So they're a harder sell. So I think a lot of dealer principals have been doing a lot of talking, a lot of thinking about how they can continue to operate in a very volatile business right now. Not only have we a problem with supply on all cars, the shutdown over the last couple of years has changed the relationship between dealerships and manufacturers, but also because we have new entrants into the market like MG, and we have more of those on the way as well, and more Chinese names that you'll be hearing soon. You've always had Geely and people behind the scenes that are sitting back like Volvo, who are trading through Volvo, but it is Geely in the background pulling the strings and getting the money. So you've got all of these movements that are happening, and at the very ground roots level, you've got the local dealership who sits in possibly a small town, having their own little district, maybe supporting 2 or 3 brands. You know, they might have Citroen, they might have Peugeot, the same brand, or they might have 2 or 3 like Volkswagen, Skoda, Seat, Audi, all in the same group. But they're still looking at the way that they sell cars to the end user and how much money they can make and how much they can spend on these €1 million glass fronted places every single year, and even the shirts and ties and suits and everything. And you can see that change in the UK. You can see how CarWow and Kazoo and all these other companies over there who have changed the way that they're selling cars entirely. They're delivering cars to people's houses on the back of trucks now, rather than having people come into the dealership at all. No negotiation. Sorting out your finance over lines. And you can see Volkswagen are moving that way. Tesla started that way. Volkswagen went to being able to order online. They're all at this online thing. And I would suggest that the vast majority of consumers out there, particularly young consumers, would have absolutely no interest in sitting in front of a dealer and trying to negotiate a trade-in value. I really don't think they care. They'd rather just hand over a set of keys and just pick up another key and drive off. They don't really care what's happening between the difference, the cost of change. That's the bottom end of the market. The top end of the market, just people want to turn up and get the car and go home. And that's where I think it needs to go. So if you are a dealership out there, get in touch with me. You want to talk about it? I'd love to have you on a podcast, talk about what you're doing to change over, what's happening out there. You're at the cold face of it. I want to know what's going on. So get in touch with me, bobflavin@thenextgear.com, and we'll get together and try and do some sort of a podcast thing about it, and we'll talk about it. And I do have a podcast. If you go into Spotify, you'll find a podcast there. It's on Apple as well. And we talked to Jason as well, a dealership, a small dealership, important from the UK. We talked about the difficulties he faces up there. And I got a lot of interest from the rest of the dealers out there as well, talking about the same thing, and they found it very insightful to look at that sort of stuff. So if you think over the next 10 years, how many dealerships are left? How many have we lost already over the last 10 years that have gone out of business or been driven out of business or just can't afford to trade the way they used to trade because car sales were falling all the time? Anyway, Mark Turner Smith, can you bring up that Volvo lease thing page, Bob? As the Daily does a lot of hassle of things. Shane, the V40 gone. The lease plan thing from Linkco. I can, I think. Hold on a second. Yes, I can. Fade to this. This is Link & Co. Here's the idea. Mobility made easy. We started the idea of mobility better. That's why membership plans are exactly as much car as you want to build. So as a membership plan. So you can own a car but not own a car, if you know what I mean. So you don't own it, but you can drive it around like it's just leasing. It's a fancy form of leasing, but it's an interesting way of doing it. It's been rolled out across Europe now, but it was actually in Norway and Poland, as far as I know, all along. Those two countries had it along. It might not have been called Link & Co, but it's basically the idea was to be able to get any car from the group, the Geely group, and you just pay a kind of a flat fee, and the car just put outside your door whenever you want it, using an app. As always, most of these things come in as an app. You just click something and it appears outside your door. Sounds interesting, but it is true. And I think there's a UK company that already do it with multiple brands. So if you want a Volkswagen on Monday, but you want an Audi on Sunday, you can have that as well. I think that's the future of a lot of car sales. I won't say sales, but you know what I mean? That kind of moment in time where we're looking at whether people actually even want to own a car, whether they'd rather just have a car when they need a car, which is quite popular in Paris. A lot of people in Paris don't own a car. They rent a car on the weekend to go to their little house in the country. That's the only time they've got a car is just when they rent one. So that's also going to start happening here. And I know Eddie Cunningham did an article a while back on a woman who works in Dublin from time to time, just before lockdown, and she lives in Portlaoise or somewhere around here. And she would commute twice a month by hiring a car. So that's all she used to do, was just hire a car. She did a deal in a local dealership to hire a car twice or 3 times a month, and she needed it. And none of the costs of insurance, tax, fuel, nothing. Not just fueled it up and you come back with once a month. It's not an ongoing thing. There's no tires, no servicing, no worrying about the car. Just rent it every once in a while. So that'll happen eventually. People will go, yeah, why would I want to own a car? I can just open up my app and choose a Tesla Model Y and it turns up outside the door. That's it. Martin says, Automotive 3 says, service costs were dramatically cut in the 90s. Fleet companies demand this. However, after 3 years, all the other ones are required, Campbell, etc. I used to run a VW dealership in the city. London rent was £700,000 a year. So labour rates were £150 plus VAT. £700,000 rent. Whoa. Right, that would make your ears bleed. Can you imagine that bill coming in? That would be scary. Pat O'Toole, hi there. Been looking at all electric cars. To this end, MG announced 2 new models this year. For me, the MG5 Estate with a predicted range of 400 kilometres and all the safety ties, a strong possibility. See, that's what they're doing. That's there's nothing wrong with that offer. That's a really good. It's a really strong offer. That's a conquesting offer. That is saying to you, Pat, buy the MG because it's really good value. You're going to get all the stuff. So don't buy the Volkswagen or the Tesla or whatever it is you're looking at, the Kia or the Hyundai or whatever the car you're looking at. That's what the Chinese companies do. They conquest you away from the brand and they give you something that's actually pretty good value, you know, even if it means selling it at a loss. The Chinese companies will sell by volume. They'll sell a huge amount of these cars, which will flood the second-hand market and so on. The trickle-down effect would be actually pretty good. But I'd like to see where these cars are going to be in 5 or 6 years' time, how long that range is going to last. I mean, the EV that I have right now had a predicted range of 280 kilometres, I think it said. When we got it, we've charged 100% since, and it's come down to 250 as it's starting to learn how we drive. You know, the guessometer thing is now learning how myself and my wife drives. As we drive really short range the whole time, it's predicting 250, and I don't know why. Kenneth Fitzpatrick says there's an electric bus in Port next week, the first one in Laois. It is, yeah. It's out already. I'll be going to have a look at it. It's one of the ones from what are they called in Dublin? Harris Group in Dublin. It's one of those kind of buses that are up there. It's been around. I've been in it before, up in Harris Group. I've been inside the buses. There's a short wheelbase and a long wheelbase one. And it's a good idea. I don't know, like, it's where buses should have been all along. It's the one thing we need to be pointing at and going, buses are perfect for battery power because they run on set schedules and all that sort of stuff. Like post vans aren't great for battery power because they run on a set schedule, but they're running all day, every day, all the time. Same as taxis, all day, every day, all the time. Whereas buses come and go through their schedule and you just got to schedule it properly and you'll be fine to get charged up as well. And you can put a lot bigger batteries in them. Tom Enright says, hi Bob, is there anything happening here with hydrogen cars, Toyota Mirai? They tried. Toyota were the main ones that were pushing hydrogen. Now, Honda did it for a bit as well. It's a Japanese kind of move. And it started out in America in a big way. We've seen a few hydrogen buses here as well, which may make it work. But as for vehicles, ordinary vehicles, we already have electricity everywhere to charge our cars. It's already here. It's powering everything we're doing today. So the idea of having to put in hydrogen fuel stations wherever the petrol stations are right now is another investment by the petrol companies or by the franchises that run them, like Port Plaza up there. We have to put in a big hydrogen fuel station. Now, that's possible, but only if they're going to make money out of it, because right now they're putting in electric charge points, and making nothing out of it. Like, they're not making any big money back out of them. They're being paid by ESB to support those boxes, but realistically, they're not really making a lot of money. Like, I've been to that charge point a few times over the last couple of weeks, and notoriously I'm there on my own. Once in a while they pull in, because I've had a good few electric cars this year, or at least PHEVs, and I've charged them up in places like that. So you end up sitting on your own. It's another problem I have with the charge point positions, actually, why they're in the middle of nowhere, dark with no roof, always down the back of a car park where it's not safe. It's not safe, lads. It's okay for big lads to down cars in the middle of the night and pulling up at 2 o'clock in the morning or 12 o'clock at night to charge a car and to get out. And so, you know, that's one thing. But if you're a lady alone, or you're a man who isn't into that kind of thing, you could end up in trouble there real quick at the back of some car park, you know, because you're tethered onto the thing as well. But I don't foresee your personal cars at home running on hydrogen in anything of the near future. I really don't. I think hydrogen is a dead end. I think they've gone probably as far as they can go with it. Maybe we'll find some other fuel or some other way of doing it, but I just don't think with hydrogen we're going to see any sort of good return or any good way it's going to happen out there. For us, I'd like to see one though. I'd like to have a drive one. I've been in Mirai. It was here in Ireland. No, there's no way of fuel in it, but it was here in Ireland, and it was shown off by Toyota Ireland for a while. Clover Video, hi Bob, which companies are good to go in terms of charging? For electricity bill is a bit expensive. It's not really home charging. No, it's fine. Now we use Energia here. Energia have a specific EV plan. Now, I'm not recommending Energia. I'm not sponsored by Energia at all, but they actually do an EV plan, and they do a night rate meter thing as well. But there are other costs associated with night rate meters. If you're not going to put everything on your night rate meter, you probably won't make it back out of it. The price of rental goes up. The price of everything goes up. Your day rate actually rises because you got a night rate meter. Okay, so that also happens. So be really aware that night rate meters may not be worth your while unless you're going to move a lot of your electricity to the nighttime rate, not just charging your car. Realistically, we just use Energia here on a normal plan. And for us, it's been a $5-ish every time we wanted to charge the car, pretty much. So we spent about €25, I think, in it since January. Mileage is very low, so don't get excited thinking it's desperately cheap or something. It's still about 17 cents per unit. And you can get it cheaper than that. You're just going to have to shop around. There's a lot going on at the moment. A lot of the car companies will also do a deal when you're buying their car. So if you buy a Volkswagen ID3, they'll do the Volkswagen Group rate on electricity, so you get cheaper electricity in the street and stuff. So there's tons of options out there to go from. Probably too many options. As I say, people are really lazy. They want to walk into a dealership, tick a box, tick another box, sign on a dotted line, car appears, charging unit appears, and they don't have to worry about that. That's what really people actually look for. Minecraft Modwork says, I'm literally 12, but I'm still watching this. Good to have you. It's all right. You can always learn something. I'm sure. I'll have a Skoda Octavia Racing Blue on lease, by the way. Oh, nice. That's all right. Brian Cassidy, Bob, motor tax. So many band A, 200 quid. Government won't like loss of revenue, so we'll hike sooner rather than later. I think that hike will actually happen this October. I'm being honest. I had a rumour that is kind of confirmed, but not really confirmed in writing. But I have a good authority to say that this October, they're probably going to split up tax band A again. Tax band A and B possibly. So currently tax band A is broken into A1, A2, A3, A4 or something. They're going to split it again and make more tax bands in it so they can get back some of the revenues being lost by EVs. I don't know how they're going to calculate this because an EV doesn't put out any CO2. So how exactly they change the CO2 rate for certain EVs, I don't know. But there is talks right now of messing around with that. But I do feel you're paying on the XC90 1,200 quid tax. I know I've a 1.6 set on out there. It goes nowhere, and we still pay about nearly 500 quid a year in tax. Just tax, because it's in the old tax bands. And it's always been unfair to the old. If I was in the modern tax band in that car, according to the NCT, I would be in tax band A3, I think, or A2, A3, something like that. Kevin, hey Bob, have you driven the latest Audi A4 all-road? Thoughts you only get a petrol version here in Canada. I haven't driven the all-road. New Audi A4 is pretty nice. A bit light, I think. It feels like a light Audi, but I think that's probably going to benefit it. As the all-road goes, it's the same Quattro system underneath. It's never going to let you down. They're as dependable as old grandfather clocks. They work all the time, Quattro systems. And I'm sure, being Canada, I've never driven in Canada, but I'm sure you have various things that happen in Canada that need to be looked after. It's your tyres are going to make the biggest difference on that car on the road. Winter tyres make a massive difference to the Quattro. Some Quattros I've seen a couple of things where you can set it so it knows it's got winter tyres on. There's a setting in it somewhere. I've seen that. Just wondering, it's still there. Paul says, hi Bob, once had an S40 2-litre diesel auto. I get 50 to 55 miles per gallon all day, even around town. I know. And I'm in that 2-litre diesel Volkswagen Arteon, and I'm getting 5.6 litres per 100 kilometres, which is somewhere up around 50 miles per gallon, 55 miles per gallon, something like that. And that's every kind of driving that I do, all the stuff. Mail, I can't even pronounce that. So the time has been moved an hour forward last night. The EU, come November, the clocks will not be reset. Therefore, the Republic follow England and the EU, so we'll have no 2 time zones in Ireland. I know. I voted to get rid of the time zone, to get rid of the hour going forward. I reckon we should just go at this time and leave it at that. The summertime we're at right now, it was a little bit darker when I woke up this morning, but you can bet it's going to be bright tonight until 8 o'clock. Like, it'll be bright outside. I think just leave it alone. Stop doing this hour thing back and forward. But it is, we'll have multiple time zones in Ireland, and depending on where you've done it across Europe. Steve McCormick, there's almost no servicing in EV. Well, we proved that that's not true. There are some heavy-duty electrics aboard that are modularly replaced. Handling of a HV battery pack takes a little bit of training. Third-party batteries also. We've already proven that someone's charging for servicing that isn't happening because there's charges for servicing all the way through the chat, which I find funny because, like, if you read, like, I still go back to the articles that I read out at the very beginning of this, and I can look at them. I still have them wide open on the screen. These sponsored things that were sponsored by the SEAI, There's one there in case you're late to the party. So that's sponsored by the SEAI. Never makes a mention at all of any servicing, but it always says here maintenance costs are also lower because the EV has fewer moving parts, he explains. So they're pushing it back on whoever Declan is. And it goes through the whole thing. Every single grant you need, but there is not a single poor mention of anything in there. Look here at this one. This comes from Electric Ireland themselves. Again, they don't mention a single moment of how much these things cost to service, whether there is a service cost. They just talk about the 5-year-old EV won't crash the same range as a 10-year-old. They talk about battery degradation in their article. They say it'll still have about 80% of its charge. And this is from Electric Ireland. So we're the same people. Electric cars here, servicing costs here should cost about 120 quid or 199 quid for a service, but I can have a service in my car for €70. There's the servicing costs written down on paper in Australia. Here's another article. This one doesn't appear to be sponsored article. This appears to be how much it actually costs. And it was updated on 2018. But again, when you get down to the end, exactly the same cost is in there again. Servicing costs on the bottom of it. It says a full service Nissan Leaf should cost around 120. A petrol diesel alternative 199. So someone's sharing an article around there what car here tells you exactly how much it's going to cost because they know it's written here. 159 quid for minor service, £209 for a major service. And then we can go into Nissan Leaf running cost from Windsor here. It doesn't mention anything to do with servicing. So the servicing thing seems to be my biggest bugbear today, is that we have all of these different ways we could learn what the servicing is about, but none of them, every one of them leads you into a dead end. None of them want to talk about how much it actually costs, that sort of stuff. So when Steve says there's almost no service in EV, there might be actually no pulling things out through a window or putting things out through the floor or taking the whole car apart. But there is certainly servicing costs because you can see them across everybody else's list. Jimmy Penrose says cold battery for the slow CCS. Yeah, we left it plugged in. Like we left it plugged in for a long time and it still didn't go above 30. I don't know why. Craig Buckley, Bob, at what state to charge the plug-in? How far did you drive before fast charging? Low state of charge, battery temperature, important factor for getting max charging speed. It might be that. We had driven during the day and I'd driven up as far as my printers up there to drop off stuff and then up as far as... So maybe it could have been the speed of how cold the battery was or something. It just seemed weird. It just didn't want to go up. I went off and had a coffee, came back, it was still charged at 30 kilowatt. Like it was still going. It was a good little 20 minutes, half an hour, still sitting there doing 30. Ronan McCellum says, I've been driving electric for 4 years now, wouldn't go back to diesel. The overall running cost with electric is cheaper when you do most of the charging home. I agree with that. If you factor in fuel, definitely, if you charge the vast majority at home, you are definitely going to save money because charging at home is far cheaper per kilometre than using diesel. If you're a very high mileage driver, if you take out the service costs or any of that replacing the liquid around the battery, then service cost goes down and you can save a lot of you can save a fortune. Doing 50,000 kilometers a year, you'll save money as long as you charge mostly at home. The minute you go outside into the wild big world out there and you want to charge your car outside, then it becomes a lot more expensive. So you start looking at Ionity, or you start looking at ESB networks or any of those networks, it does start to get pretty expensive pretty fast, particularly if you're not signed up with them. It can get very expensive then because Ionity hits you with a surcharge if you're not one of their trusted partner types. And I literally, across our team, is reading my mind. Ionity is better than many of the other rapid charging networks, but nowhere near as reliable or dependable as Tesla's supercharger network. I was Ionity Kill South yesterday. 2 out of the 4 chargers were out. And the working one gave me 22 kilowatts versus the 175 kilowatts I should have been getting in my battery charge and temperature. It's amazing how it all changes. For 73 cents per kilowatt hour versus 23 cents per kilowatt hour. That's expensive. I agree with the superchargers thing, though. I have used superchargers on a number of occasions when I've had a Tesla here, and I have never, ever failed to get a charge on them at full speed incredibly quickly. And the hook up and the experience of doing it is really second to none. You know, you reverse up, no cards, no nothing. Just pull out the thing, click it in, bind, car charge, away you go. Absolutely brilliant. Mr. Craig Buckley says 2 exact same EVs with different charging curves are totally different in terms of charging practicality on public chargers. Fair enough. Steve McCormick, if you happen to have an electric bike, zero Twizy, etc., you can have happy prospect at a time. It'll be feasible to change the batteries out for much better ones. That's good. Although they're leased, aren't they, the Twizzys? Sean Garrity says people paying 600 quid a month for cars. I'm still rocking an 18-year-old Lancer. Nice. Mr. Craig Buck, this is Bob. There's no mid-range ID4 only 2 battery options, max is 77 kilowatts usable, and is 50,000 plus. The mid-range on price, same range, and is low 40s. All right, okay. Graham Cullen, tax chat. Tour guide in Denmark said they pay 100% sales tax on new cars. That's why there are older cars on the road and folk in the city cycle. Dad was sitting down, 100% tax. Lads, we think we're bad here with the tax. 100% tax over there. Although they do have a cycling culture, same as Holland. We unfortunately have driven all our employees out of the city. You know, there's nowhere to buy in the city to buy a house. So the only way you can buy a house or living in a house, even trying to get an apartment in the city for rent, is nearly impossible. So if you're working in Dublin, say you're working in Sandiford, or you're working in somewhere along the M50, and you're living in Naas, you're on the cars. You got to get the cars. You're not going to be getting buses or trains unless you really have to. You're going to get cars. So we can incentivize people to bicycles, but we can't. Like, have you seen the bicycles cycling up the N7? I've seen them on the inside, on the hard shoulder, pedaling along in their Lycra, trying their best to get where they're going. But realistically, they're lethal looking. It could end in misery really quickly. Mr. Craig Buckley, how about an EV road tax of 120 quid per annum when it's emissions based? I know this doesn't make any sense. Because we keep putting the blame on CO2, our taxes are wrong as well, because an EV emits no CO2 while it's driving. I'm not saying while it's charging, but while it's driving, certainly it emits nothing. So how come they pay 120 quid a year anyway? But it is motor tax rather than road tax. So it is a charge on your CO2 emissions. So you're just as dirty as someone driving a tax band A1 Nissan Micra, I suppose. DC Various Vid says the chat does go up on the left-hand side. Stay where you are. See, I always left the space here because I thought the chat would disappear up along the side. That's why I'm always canted to one side. Otherwise, I'd sit in the middle like this, but you'd end up, can't see me then. Luke Dennis, our standard cars that have been converted to electric, like E208, etc., to be built from the ground up. Electric cars better, like the VW ID series. Cars that are built to be electric are better than cars that have been converted to be electric. So the E208 is a proper electric car that they've made a petrol and hybrid version of as well. The VW ID series is entirely electric, has been built from the ground up to be an electric car at the beginning, and so it's built in that way. But if you look at the Volkswagen e-Golf, that was designed to be a Golf, it just ripped out the engine, put in a battery instead of it, and a motor in there too. So I would always try and steer people towards a car that is designed to be an electric car. Most of the ones that were converted to be electric are what would be called compliance cars. So they're complying with EU regulations, they're producing an electric car for us. Cross says the E-faced rapid charger in Portlaoise outside the ESB office is software limited to 30 kilowatts because of the office hasn't got a supply to support more. Same issue, 150 kilowatt out of M7 service. And a good tip for everybody, the 150 kilowatt charger in Portlaoise Plaza is cheaper to charge at, even if you're only charging at 50 kilowatts. It's cheaper to charge at that than it is to charge at the 50 kilowatt charger right next to it. The one next to it is more expensive. Just so you know, just be aware of that one. And yeah, you're right. I wasn't charging at that one. The one I was charging at was the Portlaoise Plaza 50 kilowatt one. Actually, I charged at both of them. Both of them are 30 kilowatts. It wasn't the charger either. It was the car, something to do with the car. Clover Video says, hi Bob, I heard that Renault launched a new version of the Zoe. It's called a ZE50. We reviewed the future. That's the range. Yeah, we've done the Zoe ZE on the channel. It's one of my favourite cars. The Zoe has always been one of my favourite cars as electric because it's a good mix of decent range. The charger can work at 22 kilowatts when you're charging on a slow charger, so it actually charges. You may actually never need to use a fast charger at them. And it's good value. It just always has been good value. So I like them, yeah. Jim Shed, late check-in, guys. Happy official summertime from Jim. It's summer. We can all relax. We're getting through it now, boys. We're nearly there, you know what? We're nearly in the summers. Summer breeze make me feel calm. It's good though, isn't it? Have a note that an ID3 Max is a 4-seater and the lower model being 5-seaters. VW has a type approval issue with the weight of the higher capacity battery. The weight of these cars is serious. They really are pretty heavy in fairness to them. And they feel it though when you're driving them. They feel heavier. They feel more substantial. Even the cheap electric cars feel like substantial lumps of machinery. Gavin O'Brien, for doing your own service in local council recycling centres, normally take used motor oil for free. Correct, yeah. I put into a local dealership who recycles it anyway. So it's only, for me, like I'm not a professional service, it's only like 5 litres of oil. It's not a lot. Same in Wales, hardly any public chargers greater than 7 kilowatt, not many ever. And I find a lot of the cars, when you go to a 22 kilowatt charger, will only charge 7 kilowatts anyway. So that's a pain. Aidan McLaughlin says, Bob, Land Rover plugged into a charger in a new dealer showroom All went up in fire in the UK. Oh no, God, not good news for Jaguar Land Rover. A lot of recalls about to happen now. This seems to be an ongoing thing, is fires to go with electric cars at the moment. Just I don't know whether it's the battery technology or it's the connectivity issues or old battery systems or old cabling systems or whatever it is, but it just seems to be a problem, right? Alan Acaster says dealers have different rates based on where their dealerships is. More expensive in London due to building costs and labour rate, but £750,000 a year to rent it. Dealers will to after sales service in the future. OEM direct sales to consumer plus new subscription models will be the future. I think you're right. I really do think that most of the car companies, even right now, will be looking at direct to end user stuff. I know Volkswagen you can order an ID3 online, but it is delivered by the local dealership. So that's the way they keep them in the loop. But I don't foresee that going forward. That sounds like a very political thing to just say right there, isn't it? I sound like a politician. Going forward, I don't believe that will be something that will continue on forever. I don't think that the idea, people will want to drive a second-hand car. I think people want to go and see the second-hand car, see its condition. But when it comes to a new car, we've been gotten fairly well conditioned by Tesla, as they were the top-selling car for a while there. We were fairly conditioned by them to just buy the car online and then pick it up at a dealership. When it's not, no one's selling you anything. They're just going to explain to you how things work in a dealership. That's all that's going to happen. So there's no negotiation. That people don't like negotiating. No one ever liked going to the dealership to negotiate a price. Nobody enjoys that factor. And if they can take it out, they'll take it out. That's what I'm warning you now. I think that's what's going to really happen. Volvo intending to sell direct near the future. That's already happening, Sean. With the lockdown right now, you can buy most cars online. Liam Hearn, and I know Renault toyed with Amazon for a long time. They were talking to Amazon. They had cars for sale in France on Amazon. You just went to Amazon, just put your deposit down on Renault Fluence. Liam Hearn says, I have a 16-year-old Golf I was getting serviced in the main dealer. Needed for going to and from work. Went to service and they gave me a list of jobs that needed to be done. It cost $2,500. It's more than the price of the car. Bloody hell. Quayne Cefa says, hi Bob, Quayne here. I live in London. I'm a community health worker. I do a lot of short distance in the city. I use a Toyota Verso, not a hybrid. Will save charging over an EV? Yes. If you were to change an EV, even a PHEV, you would definitely save money in London. Particularly if you're dipping in and out of congestion charge areas. Congestion charge is lower for electric. I don't know if they even have a congestion charge for electric, but certainly is lower. The Verso is very practical, but if you're going to change, I would definitely change into something either hybrid PHEV or full electric and be done with it, because you'd be surprised around the city, electric car is really efficient. It's very good at getting its energy back into the car, so you end up doing much more mileage than you think the car is capable of. Liam Hart says 990 quid for an exhaust. It turned out to be a flexi, just needed to be replaced. Got it done for 150 quid. That's all right. Richard H says, hi Bob, I was going for an EV Ioniq, but dealer put up the price by €1,000, so it'll be for E-Up, and now they are smaller. That's wild. €1,000 went down to the Ioniq. See, there's a demand on the product. So many people looking for electric cars right now that there is a little bit of, gazumping going on, I suppose, in the price range as well, as particularly in the UK second-hand market, as there's a huge draw on them. Keith says, in the UK, VW ID3 77 kilowatt is known as the Tour. The Max is the smaller battery for better performances. In Ireland, ID3 planning different. I don't think we have the Tour. We definitely have the Max, though. I don't think it's called Tour here for some reason. Be interested in the XC40 Recharge? Yeah, we'll see. I don't think we need big off-roady looking cars to be electric cars. I think we need cars that are really efficient and do good mileage and are decent enough to drive. I think the idea of like E-Trons or any of those kind of big cars, or even XC40, I'm sure there's a market for it. I'm not saying there's no market for it, but to get those cars to do the same range as something like a Model 3, you have to put bigger batteries in. It's just that simple. There's no way of getting them to go faster because they're built like bricks. So they're not very fuel efficient. Even 15 years ago when I lived in Dublin, I rented a car twice a year for holidays. Happy holidays, they were, says Steve McCormick. Dead right. Yeah, I know. There's a definite market for renting, short-term renting, not in the ghost car style, but certainly weekend renters who generally, if they live in a city anyway, could be using an electric scooter, which we are getting new legislation to cover electric scooters. Thanks, but it's about time. But we are getting legislation to cover it. And so it will go that direction eventually for sure. Andrew Daly, what's frustrating is Europe, we were cutting back on emissions, but the rest of the world doesn't give a hoot. That's true. It is very much pushed upon Europeans. America is starting to get with it now, but I don't know how with it they're actually going to stay, since still their number one selling car is the Ford F-150. Ford have announced an electric version of it. How many people in Texas are going to buy an electric version of a Ford F-150? I'm not sure about how well it's able to tow and the weight of the car. Whether it's actually a good thing to do, I don't know. But we'll see as that market develops its own growing pains with a new president in tow, a new Irish president in tow. Anyway. We won't mention more. We're going to get good quality baseball hats. Don't know. We wouldn't be bringing in baseball caps for us. I know the baseball cap I wear from time to time, people are talking about, is a Skoda VRS baseball cap, which you can get on Skoda whatever it is, the Skoda website. Would a night rate work with solar panels? So, well, solar panels, the best way of using solar panels is trickle charge a big battery. Okay, because solar panels on their own only supply energy when the sun is up. So it only gives you enough energy to do something when the sun is up. So if you're charging your car, it'll only work during daylight hours if you're plugging it straight in. This is available at the moment. I've seen these solar panels. I got an email the other day from a solar panel seller who was selling a kit for a small solar panel that you put in your roof. You run a cable on the wall, but effectively plug it straight into the car. It goes through a box and whatever. But that will only work during the day, which is when you want to use the car. Like most people who work come home in the evening when the sun is going down. So this solar panel trickle charge thing isn't going to do much for your battery. So the best way to do it is to have, if you look up Tesla wall chargers, they're selling them already, but there's loads of other companies getting into it now where they have solar panels that are trickle charging a big battery on the side of your house, and then you use that big battery to run your house and the car. So you can work it at night time. Steve McCormick says hydrogen is a ruse and a distraction. I can't believe we're still talking about it in the context of cars. Yeah, see, unfortunately, the information is trickling out to people and they're hearing about it, and some of them are seeing videos and things because a lot of companies out there are looking for funding. They want to be funded to research stuff, so they put out little videos going, this is the future of cars and stuff, and actually it doesn't really work. Hydrogen isn't really going to go much further, I don't think. Where did I just finish off? I'm catching up in this. I'm at 3:38 and I'm already 4:10 now, so I'm getting there. Hold on, I'm catching up now. There it is. Ioniq will be liquid cooled, but it's liquid cooled via fan. Oh, fair enough, right? Have switched from EI to Energia and it's 4 cent a unit. Not sure of the day rate. That's pretty good. What about same for night charging Zoe, also washing? It's okay with the extra bits on it. It's not too bad, yeah. Cost 13 going up on the 5th of April by 8%, lads. 8%. That may not seem like much. 8% may not seem like much, but for some people out there who are struggling to pay bills already with energy prices going up across the board, particularly people who have maybe electric cars, a second car at the house, they have another yacht as a diesel one. They're already diesel prices going up through the roof and all that. So it's getting serious, you know. Liam Hearn says, where did you see the build quality and resale value of MG in 3 years? I don't know. I really don't know. I'd be afraid because if you look at stuff that Chinese companies are good if you stand over them and watch when they're building something, you know. If they're left on their own, they don't tend to be, the quality doesn't stay, the long-term quality. They're cheaper to buy, but they don't last as long. So I don't know, but they're stuck using the same batteries as everybody else. So if their batteries don't hold their charge, it'll be the same for everybody. The point is, Bob, dealers are trying to screw you with the service charges unless the actual repair, there's nothing routinely to be done. Cut out the middleman. I totally agree. If we're going to continue putting out articles the whole time that I've shown you today that shows that you have less service costs, less this, less that, that has to pass on through the dealership. The dealers will have to take responsibility. The car companies will have to do a bit of enforcement on this as well, in that you just don't want someone who just bought themselves a Kia e-Soul or a Hyundai Kona or something. They're sitting at home. They do high mileage. Year 2, the bill is 990 quid and they don't question it. And it was totally unnecessary, you know, because it's in the service history or something. Shane Cole says, do you think main OEM VW BMW will pivot their business model to do a Tesla-style low overhead post-COVID, but they have pumped millions into businesses that can't be pivoted overnight? That's the problem, Shane. Right now, you're looking at dealerships who have been funded for years now to try and build bigger showrooms. They've had re-signage fees. They've got signage fees for outside. They've put a lot of work into making sure that their forecourt looks just right and doing all that. It takes a long time for a small business to be able to change over like that. But Volkswagen can change overnight because they've done it. They've done it already. Essentially right now, you can pretty much buy anything from their electric car range online without ever visiting the dealership. And that's what they've announced they're going to do. So it's not just Volkswagen, it'll be BMW, it'll be everybody else along with them. They will continue to support their dealerships. I'm not saying they're going to get rid of their dealerships or anything, but it's so difficult for a small business to make money when they're just delivering cars. That's essentially the way they're going to go over the next couple of years. You will just put a car onto a trailer and to be delivered out. It's handy for Volkswagen and BMW and everyone else to be able to deliver their cars to a country, a specifically area country, then deliver straight down to a dealership. Then they can forget about it. It's a dealership problem now. So that, it suits them to have dealerships, but it won't suit them into the future, because if they want to lower their costs and they want to save money, it's the dealership is taking their cut. It's just a link in a chain that they'll want to get rid of eventually. This is always down to big business. I'm not trying to diss. Dealerships do a very, very important job in this country. They are local. They understand the currency. They understand the people around them, the support network. They know people's families, all that stuff cannot be underestimated. But it's not dealerships making this decision. This decision is going to come from way higher up a food chain somewhere. Robbie K says, hi Bob, I've been using my mate's MG chargers a couple of times on public chargers. Why do we have different apps and cards needed? This is my biggest problem of all, Robbie. The idea of pulling up to any charger and have to install another app and sign up to another company and do all this sort of stuff. And even giving them a deposit, even signing up to a fast charger and having to fork over 20 quid to the company owner, even if you're not going to use it, just is ridiculous. Can you imagine going into a petrol station and having to give them a minimum of 20 quid before you can pick up the hose? And when you reach 20, it'll cut off, and then you put in another 20, so you go back again and pay them again. This ongoing thing doesn't make any sense to me at all. I want an app that's Apple Pay. I want to be able to use Apple Pay. I want to have a gauge on the screen. I put in my fuel, which is my electricity. The gauge clocks up. It tells me I owe 25 quid, and I go tap and pay it. That's what I want. That's it. Nothing else. I don't want to give you 100 quid and then spend it over the next 6 months. I want to just pay you what I used. No mention of an average life of battery. 10k to 20k to replace. Anywhere from about 6k up as batteries. All the articles mentioned that some of the battery will lose their life over 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years. None of them actually say how much of the life. Most of them say you'll have 80% of your battery left. But there's an iPhone XS, which has essentially the same battery in it as a car, laptops, cars. They're all essentially running the same thing. And if I go into my battery thing here, tells me that my battery health is at 89%. So I have 89% of my battery left on that phone. And that was at 92% a couple of days ago. So it's dropping away. It's still able to support normal peak performance, but it's only, instead of, it's losing an hour. Essentially, it's losing an hour of work that I'll have to charge it more often. It was a diesel Land Rover went on fire. Well, any car can go on fire once there's fuel in it. Any car can burn. It doesn't have to be electric or diesel or petrol or anything else. They can all do it. Martin Smith, what's happening with the Subaru these days? God knows. They've been sold and sold again. They were sold to an English company in Ireland, and then they were sold again to someone else. But Subaru themselves have been in trouble for years. I mean, they don't sell many cars outside of the Asian territories. I think they're very popular there, and they're very popular in the US. They don't really make European cars, so I'm not too sure where they're going to go with that, but they still exist so far. Liam Hearn says they won't give up guns, hardly give up on fossil fuels. The Americans, that is. Quain says, what about leasing EV and paying £250 to 300 quid a month? Is that cost effective? If you're buying it out, sure. I mean, if you're leasing it and that's your total cost, that includes insurance and tax and all that sort of stuff, and you just charge it, then £250 to 300 pound a month is like a PCP payment. So yeah, that would work out quite nicely. Then it's effectively a long lease. You know, you just change it over a few months. Dan Whelan, once I heard salespeople in dealerships described as glorified order takers. Nowadays, as customers spec cars out online before. Well, you know, there is something in that as well. I mean, every car company offers a configurator now that you can go in and configure the car exactly the way you want it. And then at the very end of that configuration, it says contact your local dealer, and you fill in your details, and that gets sent to the dealership, and the dealership follows you up. So essentially, the sales end of it is finished, you know. Any dealer worth his salt will tell you if someone walks into a dealership, there's a sale. That is the end of a sale, because it's so rare these days for someone just to drive in off a forecourt and go looking at cars. Most people will have done their research before they ever get near you. So before anyone walks into a dealership, most people would have looked up what car, the range, the price, the reviews. They look at my videos, they look at, I don't know, Complete Car, they look at someone else and someone else and someone else, till they get what they're looking for. Then at the last stage, that's actually ringing the dealership. Dealership has now become the other end of the food chain. But I think there's a space for dealerships to really do something good for the consumer and stop taking their own side now. The consumer needs to be thought about, because the consumer right now is so confused with all the taxes and charges and bills and things that are coming in. Everything's a $5 a month, everything's a $10 a month. There's money bleeding out from people all over the place. And to be part of that, the second biggest purchase we make in a lifetime is a car, and we make it multiple times in our lifetimes. So it's not just once. You don't just buy one car forever. You're buying a car every 5 years or every 3 years of PCP, you know. So really, dealerships need to stand up and go, this is what needs to happen. VRT needs to be addressed. The import duty of 10% needs to be addressed. Seriously, it needs to be addressed. That is a massive torpedo into the side of the car industry here. Not just industrial level, but also consumers. The consumers are going to pay all these prices. That's what we need to really address. That, and then electric cars, we really need to be more honest with electric cars. The price of servicing, the price of charging, how much you're going to be billed when you're charging in. People just can't take it that easy. It's not that straightforward for someone just to walk in out of doing petrol and diesel their whole life. They're in their 50s, they want to buy an electric car, they don't know where to start, and they're being ripped off. And that's what's really happening right now, is it's all going to come back and get you in the end, sooner or later. I've really enjoyed today's Sunday service. It's been absolutely brilliant to have you along. I can even bring in a little bit of end music. Look at that. That gas. Bit of end music as well. Thank you very much for joining me today. We've run way over time, but it's a really interesting discussion, a really open and frank discussion with every one of you. I've loved it. I hope you've learned something from not just me, from the comments that were there as well, about the service cost, the way even owners here giving us the list of their service costs, and it's entirely different from one another on the same car. So we should really start looking at that and start addressing that and start taking the side of the consumer. Thank you very, very much for joining me. You can, list of links are all down below if you want to support the channel and keep it independent so I can keep on asking the weird questions. Hopefully you look after yourself over the week. Get some exercise. Get outside the door. We have an extra hour in the evening now. We can go for a walk in the evening. It's not going to get dark on you. So enjoy that as well. Get out there and do stuff. Thank you very much for joining me. And until the next time, I will see you on the far side.